Hello. I was almost not going to talk. Welcome to the humanity. I am Matt. Oh, where we do things with the stuff for the people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Tommy. And yeah, not talking. That would have been an interesting episode.
Trying to get my camera all situated here. Looks like I'm shrinking and growing. That's what she said.
About herself or describing you? I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know. My brain just went through that was like a space opera scene or something. So it's like it could have been anything.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, welcome to Wednesday nights, everybody. Yeah, we'll see how this new night goes. But we figured for our first episode on the new night, might as well tackle just a little topic. People are talking about these days. The kids on their TikToks and their Twitches and whatever.
Oh, the TikToks.
I don't know why I'm doing this bit. I have no idea how it connects or anything. Anyway, problem of evil. Seems like a big deal to some. Especially,
and is it a problem? Who's it a problem for?
Ooh.
Why am I rowing? I'm like on an elliptical.
The problem of rowing.
Yeah. That's not how you row. That's like a cross country skiing. Who rows like this? It's like nobody rows with an exaggerated hand walking motion.
There's a lot of problems with Matt's rowing. So but speaking of the new night and our usual what we drinking kind of thing, so I figured, with this being our switching to a new night, but still trying to maintain some sort of sense of continuity with the way the show previously was on the Tuesdays, I figured I'd stick with not necessarily the same exact beer, but at least the same beer delivery system that I was using last week. So so that people feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, the beer delivery makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it makes me more comfortable. So
yeah,
I don't know. But anyway, so this is my full liter, which contains 3 of not the Sam Adams Oktoberfest like I had last week, but
right.
Just noticing the beers are taking over the stores now. This is this year's Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest.
Yeah, who's that with this year?
Let's see, Gutmann. Yes. It literally means pretty much what it sounds like. Good man.
Good man.
So yeah, I love how they do their Oktoberfest. Is like they usually do a collab with an actual German brewery.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's Sierra Nevada, so you have that kind of mix of like very traditional Oktoberfest beer, like German style lager taste, but also that special Sierra Nevada flair of like somebody accidentally knocked over the bag of hops into the brewing vat.
Yeah, you got some West Coast hops in there.
Yeah. But also this one, it's not the Oktoberfest Märzen, which is like, the usual traditional style. This is the Fest beer, which I don't know the origins of it. All I know is like it's usually a little lighter in color, where your Märzen's usually kind of like a darker orangish amber. This, it looks darker just because there's so much of it in here, but it's a little yellower and like on like the kind of golden.
Isn't it kind of like halfway between a regular lager and an Oktoberfest? It's kind of a lighter body Oktoberfest.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like just for like it's a fest beer, so like party beer. So it's like here, like so it's like it's just something you can maybe like drink more of because it's a little. Maybe, like I said, a little lighter bodied. So it's basically, I don't know the exact origins, but it's almost like, here, honkies, drink this, get drunk.
Hey, honkies.
All right.
Why are they called honkies?
Now, the explanation I heard for
I figured cracker comes from whip cracker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the explanation for honky that I've heard, and again, anyone in the audience, correct me. It was from like if a white guy was dating an African American girl and he went to pick her up at her house, he didn't feel comfortable actually like getting out and walking up to her door. He would just keep his car on the street and just honk. So that's at least where I heard it came from. So.
All right, so they're like They're like what is it, like lower calorie racist?
Like at least they're trying.
To the Oktoberfest.
I see what you did there. Yeah.
They're like, I don't mind being seen with you, just not most places.
Like your own house.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one of my favorite, like,
that's funny. By the way, that's called in Cincinnati. It's called a Norwood doorbell, which makes sense, right? Because Norwood is up until like I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so, it was a very white area, surrounded by more black areas. So maybe that's when like the Norwood people went out to pick up people from the black neighborhoods to hang out. They're just like meep meep, and they're like Norwood doorbell.
Yeah, I lived in Norwood for a little while. Yeah, that's it's a place. Like I remember one of my favorite things about living there, it was like in the spring, like when the weather started turning nicer and you could like open your windows in your house. And at that point, like just like hearing the sounds from outside, just the realization, like, man, this entire city just collectively needs to get their mufflers looked at. So,
yeah.
Yep. So
mufflers are superficial. We ain't that fancy.
Yeah. Speaking of superficial, so problem of evil. Wanted to kind of well, because like, is evil a superficial concept? I don't know if superficial is the right word, but my brain needed to make a connection at some point.
Superfluous.
Superfluous. That's a good word too. Yeah.
Superfluous.
It's not just fluous; it's superfluous. But yeah, there's the, I guess, traditional way that a lot of these atheist type shows will attack it, basically just looking at the apologetic argument of it and why it's, or at least the apologetic arguments against the problem of evil and why they're bullshit. And we'll definitely get to that. Don't you worry. But then,
don't you worry, pretty little heads.
Yeah. Or your ugly little heads. We don't discriminate. Yeah. Also, just concepts of like, what even is evil? Why is it a problem for Christianity specifically? I mean, I think I'd say it's a problem for any view. I think specifically monotheistic views of God that make God out to be like all powerful and all loving. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Christian God, but the Christian God is definitely a prime example of that. And obviously the one we're most familiar with. So, but yeah, because I guess the easy answer for like polytheism is just, well, some of the gods are just evil and they do evil shit, and the good ones, they try to stop it, but they can't do it all. But then Matt, who I swear is still here,
I just picked off. I had to get my other light because the visual difference was really throwing me off. Because it's not the same.
Right.
As normal. Yeah. My brain was like, you're not the same. You're not the same. You can't listen to anything if you're not the same. Okay.
It's true. No, that's a real thing. But you were also bringing up some interesting points, just like from the angle of like why Christians kind of need the concept of evil to begin with, and like how they view it and how that makes them view the world, and then how it, and then tying that back into like, well, this is why they need for it's almost like connected for their need to be a good God, like because of like all the evil they see in the world, but then the evil that they're seeing in the world that they kind of, they might not say, but I would say created this image of a good God to explain.
Yeah.
It's just like further compounding the problem, because now you don't just have to explain the evil, but now you also have to explain how there's a good God with the evil, and it just all kinds of backfires, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like based on the need to. like the need for one's self to be good. Because there's evil. So you're like that's evil. That's bad. That's super wrong. And then you're like, but I'm not like that. Am I? No, I'm not like that.
Nope.
And now I need I need the forever big to tell me that I am good forever and ever. And but we still like judge ourselves. So then we're like, I'm still bad, but like maybe my goodness is better because God said so. And he killed a guy, but not just any guy. He killed his son, which means he's good.
which was him.
Yeah.
So it was like,
so he's super bad. Like God took on the sin of the world and then killed himself, but he's okay.
Yay. Oh, yeah. So, but speaking of topics of like him like killing himself, so I probably should have put some kind of trigger warning on the description, because obviously, if we're talking about the problem of evil, I think that like you almost kind of can't like really do the conversation justice, I think, without delving into some like really like kind of dark territory as far as like how do you explain this? Because I think a lot of times when Christians talk about the problem of evil, they seem they keep it at a maybe like nicer level. They just talk about problems like, oh, people get sick and okay, people die, but everybody dies, or maybe like just having some hard times.
Yeah, but not everybody dies or has that kind of hard time.
Yeah. That doesn't die in that way or that soon or that. Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's like it rains everywhere, and you're like, but not every place has a Category 5 tornado.
It also doesn't always rain on people who are like in slavery and stuff.
Yeah, it's like you're comparing apples to like giant apples. It's like so there's such a size difference. They're not the same anymore.
Yeah, they're like giant apples to kumquats. Partially, I just like saying kumquats
or pomegranates.
So, and once again, like saying something like that, I just saw our viewer counter went up. So I guess say kumquat and they will appear. So.
And they will come.
Anyway, so yeah, sorry. I felt like your brain was making another thing.
My brain?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I was combining kumquat with what you said from Field of Dreams. But then if you like really combine it, it's like say kumquat and they will come, and it's like that's come too many times.
or if you build it, they will kumquat.
Oh, that's kind of like that.
Anyway, so I guess how do you want to like I said, there's a lot to talk about. Oh yeah, what are you drinking?
First, I'm drinking. I forgot what this is called. It's Westside Brewing Citra Pale Ale. Ooh. It's a pale ale that is Citra heavy.
Nice.
I actually have it in another glass over here. My own delivery system. It's a Mad Tree glass. One of the most comfortable pint glasses.
Oh yeah, I have some of those myself too. Yeah, I think that's maybe like part of why that's one of my favorite like microbreweries to go drink at. I mean, obviously, like, I just love their beer, but yeah, the glasses they serve it in there.
So they're kind of perfect shaped for like every kind of beer.
Oh yeah, very 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 versatile. So yeah, so lots of topics and stuff that we've kind of laid out regarding this. So like, how do you want to approach this? Should we? You want to start with like the philosophical argument, or just like talking about like the more specifically Christian concept of evil itself, like why it's even a thing, or
I don't know.
No.
Getting into this topic is always difficult for me.
Yeah,
and maybe that's just like apologetic infusion from when I was a Christian, where you basically just dodge that topic every time somebody brings it up, or you bring it up in your own head. And so like getting out of that like redirection, the automatic redirection is a little difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a tactic that's used with the problem of evil. I think it's actually used in a lot of things with apologetics or just different issues people have with Christianity, because it is such an old problem, like, but and it's something that like theologians and apologists and just your basic everyday religious folks have been like dealing with for a while, like on whatever level. But because I remember like this is one of the things that apologetics loves to do, is like they just like will just put an argument out there, and no matter how good it is or not, they can just say, well, we've dealt with that. Because I run into this a lot when I bring up topics like this or like other issues that I have with Christianity or the Bible, and I get this response a lot. It's like, look, Christians have like already been dealing with this, and it's like not a problem for us anymore. So I don't know why you keep bringing it up. It's like, well, just because you dealt with it doesn't mean you dealt with it well. Or as I also like to say, like, and the Mormons, I'm sure, also don't have an issue with the whole golden plate story either. But that doesn't mean it's not an issue.
So. Yeah, just because you don't have an issue with it and like you think you answered it doesn't mean that you have answered it.
Yeah.
Like for, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess let's maybe talk about some of the ways they do answer it and why they're mostly bullshit. So now, like we said, the problem, or maybe we should actually like lay out what is the problem of evil. Now there's, like when we discussed like the problem of divine hiddenness, like several months ago, like there's like the more official, like technical philosophical argument, but I don't really know or remember what that is. Plus, I mean, most people like don't usually think in terms of like philosophical arguments. It's one of those things like, if it's going to make sense, you need to make it make sense to people who aren't like philosophy nerds or whatever.
That is always a good idea.
Yeah. So basically the problem is, and again, this will probably like kind of by default be thinking of the Christian God, but it's really just any, I think probably specifically monotheistic view of God that views him as all powerful and all good, or omnipotent and omnibenevolent being the things. Probably omniscient in there because he probably has to know like wherever evil is happening as well. So basically and that's essentially just what most Christians mean when they say God. Okay, you got one dude who's all powerful, controlling everything. He's all good. He knows everything that's happening. He's got a plan and a purpose for everything, all that. So the problem is, if there's this good God who's all powerful and knows everything that's happening, how can evil, at least to the extent that we see it, which seems to in so many cases just be so gratuitous, like how can those things coexist? So and a lot of like atheists, a lot of atheists probably consider this one of the strongest cases against the existence of God. Again, at least the existence of that kind of God. I still kind of see divine hiddenness as bigger, and you can go back and watch our episode on that to see why. Because I think part of the problem of evil wouldn't be as much of a problem if it wasn't for divine hiddenness. Because part of the problem is just like not knowing why all this stuff happens. But if there was a reason and God like wasn't so hidden and would actually explain it, then it wouldn't be as much of a problem, I think. But he's not, so therefore it's a problem.
Yeah. No, I think those two are really tied together. Hiddenness and the problem of evil.
Yeah. Now, I guess as far as like the different...
By the way, you might see me doing like Mr. Miyagi kinds of like grabbing at the air, and it's because there's at least 2 fruit flies in here.
Ah, okay.
Well, so if you see me just like fighting the air, that's what's happening.
The problem of fruit flies. Ooh, do we get it?
No.
Well.
Little fuckers.
That'll be something else for people to watch, I guess, during the course of the episode. Like, can Matt get the fruit flies by the time we're done? Don't worry, he'll have plenty of time. So the different ways that Christians try to make sense of that or argue against it, I think, now they wouldn't put it this way, but I think Calvinism probably has the simplest answer. And again, they wouldn't actually put it this way, but based on like how like the Calvinist view is, like if people aren't familiar with Calvinism, they just think like super fundamentalist, like Reformed Christianity, specifically in terms of like God, like literally like predestines everything and plans every single thing that happens, including intentionally sending people to hell just because he think it makes him look cool or whatever, that he can do shit like that. So, and among so many other things, but also in that is a very low view of humanity. So like basically like anything bad that happens at all, like we deserve it. So we don't question God at all. He just does what he does and we just accept it right up the ass. So to me, the Calvinist answer for the problem of evil is really simple. It's just, well, God is just evil. Done and dusted. Next. But
I'm trying to chat GPT a thing real fast, and it's just no, you don't even get to type things in.
Like, nope, I'm done.
No, yeah. I broke it a little bit. That's what happened.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and the question was, how do Jews deal with the problem of evil? And it was just like,
oh, all the midrashing.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of answers from them. But
well, what I was looking for in particular was a lot of it is similar to Christianity. Some of the stuff we'll touch on, but another one of them that I wanted to make sure was actually part of the beliefs before I said it is the idea that like evil is God's correction. Because in the Old Testament, there's at least one place, maybe one of the prophetic books that starts with an E, where
Ezekiel.
Yeah, where God said that like good and evil, like both good and evil, come from Him.
Well, I know in Isaiah he says,
"Okay,
I make peace and create evil."
There you go.
But it might be. I mean, that might be in Ezekiel as well. I just know that specific verse is in Isaiah.
That sounds like what I was thinking of. Yeah. So like evil as kind of a punishment, but like more like a reforming of reality. Like people were disobedient, and so like that broken part of the machine created this, and now like that evil happening corrects the machine, and so it's like things bouncing back out.
Yeah,
I'm kind of more sympathetic to that. The idea that if a system is broken, like it can create resentment and evil, and then the evil lashes out, and and that you can, and then good can either de-escalate the situation or respond completely in kind, and now it just keeps going. Kind of like a seesaw effect, or like when you like a spring doorstop, how like you flick a spring doorstop, and it just like the back and forth gets slower and slower, not slower and slower, shorter and shorter, and the change happens faster and faster.
Yeah.
And so I kind of see that could be kind of the same way.
Yeah, but yeah, but then, and as we kind of get into more of these arguments, like one of my main issues with pretty much all of them is it's one thing to just like come up with an argument. It's another thing to actually demonstrate that actually is the case.
True. That
actually is what's happening. Because I think without that, to me, like so many things in apologetics, all these arguments to me just seem incredibly ad hoc. Like we're just trying to make up something like, well, this would explain it. Okay, but does it actually explain it in reality? It's
based on only the information in this one compendium.
Because
written literature.
Oh yeah, this one compendium of written literature that doesn't even agree with itself most of the time.
Yeah,
or
But Dag-Nurbit will make it agree.
Yeah. Because it's just breaking my brain.
Breaking the brain.
I just watched Judas Priest, at least Rob Halford, performing that song with Baby Metal the other day. And that was
nice.
But
Breaking the Law.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they did. It was kind of a medley. They did Jawbreaker and Breaking the Law. So kind of a breaking theme. But yeah.
Baby Metal's a masterpiece. I don't get all of it, but like they have absolutely nailed whatever it is they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's something I've only recently. I've known about them, pretty much ever since they were a thing. But I've only recently actually started like watching like some of their videos and stuff. I feel like it's one of those bands like. I don't know if it's really the same thing to just listen to it. I feel like you kind of have to watch like either their videos or their live shows because
it's a participatory thing.
Mm-hmm, yeah, but anyway, so apologetics being ad hoc, just coming up with stuff. Is that actually what it is, or is it just whatever? Yeah, works at the time. Yeah, it seems like. To me, like the disconnect with this is
why does God need to be good? So, like that's I'm just tracing back the problem of evil. Where does that come from? Well, because it's a problem because there is evil and God is good, and that seems like an assumption. Like, why is God assumed to be good?
Yeah. Other than that's just the way he's like written in like the Bible and other scriptures, or you think like where does that idea even come from to begin with?
Yeah,
which is why I put it in there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's assume that religion theology is kind of like humanity's attempt to understand things it can't understand. So, so it comes from some kind of human need in that case. So like what does that mean? Can we just not handle the idea that like the universe is just evil? Or because we can't change it. So I don't know. There's like a weird compulsion there I don't get.
Yeah, and I wonder if like, because like I said, the existence of evil like makes much more sense in like a polytheistic view. Because you might have like some gods that are good, but then of course you got like the more evil ones that they're trying to contend with, and like sometimes they prevail, sometimes they don't.
Yeah. And because it's not all encompassing, it like that really doesn't allow for there to be a problem of evil. You know what I mean? Because there is no one thing that encompasses all of the good.
Yeah. So I wonder, because at least from my understanding, like monotheism, like as far as like different types of theism was kind of a later arrival. So I don't know if like all like religions or like theistic views before that, like they were all just polytheistic because they just looked at like, well, here's this a thing. Okay, so there's a god of that thing. There's a god of that thing over there. And so maybe it just seemed like a more natural thing. But I wonder if the whole view of monotheism, like I wonder how that was connected to like the idea of like, well, if there's only going to be one, it should probably be good because otherwise,
what's the point?
Yeah.
And that's all must have a point. This whole religion thing, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It can't just be. Yeah, it'll just shrink and shrink the more we learn.
Yeah. So like I said, that's something I don't actually know. Haven't really thought about before. Yeah, but I wonder if, like, what was the rationale? Because I think, at least as far as we know, wasn't like Zoroastrianism like one of, if not the first, like known versions of monotheism?
It was dualism.
Yeah.
Which is it's like if you're an evangelical Christian, or you were, that's real like devil heavy. Evangelical Christianity is very much kind of a dualism theology, even though they're like, no. It's like, it's just hard for God to win against the devil. I mean, it's just not time yet.
Yeah.
So why are you so afraid? Like, why do we have to fight the devil so much? If he's not an equal threat.
Mm-hmm. So Vincent says it's slightly more complex than that, but only slightly. Okay, well, at least I know I'm getting close. So yeah,
what's up, Vinny?
Vincent's he's actually a guy I met over the weekend on one of Derek Day's streams. So yeah, very cool guy. Got to chat a little bit. So yeah, glad you're here, Vincent. Good to see you. So yeah, and so Vincent, from what I understand, like has a much bigger background. Like I think he actually studied theology.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so if there's anything we say during the course of the evening that's just off, feel free to correct. So yeah, I think that'd be something interesting to know. Like, what was the rationale, like with the connection of like the fusing or transition to monotheism, and then I feel like, well, it's got to be a good God, otherwise, that's depressing. So, but
because
like
the good things feel so much better than the bad things, right? And good feelings must be like the supreme feeling because we want it to be.
Yeah, which I mean, and I don't necessarily mean this in like the kind of like derogatory sense, but if it is, it's a lot of this is essentially like wishful thinking on a certain level. It's like, well, this is kind of like an idealized version, or at least like how we want it to be. Because I guess if
it's it's like this is what I need to be true. Like this is what I need to be true to feel okay.
Yeah, and so I guess that's maybe why, like in Zoroastrianism, like you still have like the dualism, like the good God is what was the name? Ahura Mazda.
Yeah, Ahura Mazda.
And then was like the God, the good parts, and then there was still, and I forget the name of the kind of like devil counterpart.
Yeah, his name must not be as cool because I only ever remember the good one.
Yeah, I know I've heard it and recently, but I just can't remember.
Steve.
Yeah, so you got Ahura Mazda, Zoom Zoom, and Steve. So maybe that's why we still have to have the evil component, like sort of supernatural figure, but he's not the God. So he's still a factor, but not like the controlling factor. But
okay, in my mind, Steve is the red stapler guy from Office Space. I will burn everything. I'll burn this place to the ground.
And by this place, I mean everything. See, and look, he's not a bad guy. He just wanted his stapler back.
Right, red stapler.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was like Satan's son. Like he's been there like since his internship, and he had like the only red stapler. Because of course the son of Satan would have a red stapler.
Oh, now here's another point. So yeah, monotheism develops in Egypt ahead of writing the Torah. And I do remember.
Oh yeah,
and
the cult of Ra.
Yeah, and this is an awesome thing about me that I like is I remember that because of a song by the death metal band Nile, who's like all like Egypt themed, and they had a song about this guy called "Cast Down the Heretic."
That's a good,
and it's a fucking amazing song. Maybe
I haven't heard it, but I like that name with the genre and the name of the band and all that. So yeah,
it fucking rules. It's a amazing song. But yeah,
so whenever a metal band talks about heretics, it's going to be some excellent social commentary. That's what I've noticed anyway.
Indeed. Yeah. So Egypt then goes back to their polytheism roots. Yeah. Because again, as the song title, "Cast Down the Heretic" would imply, they didn't take too kindly to it. And then the Hebrew God develops out of a similar polytheistic pantheon. Oh yeah. The
Canaanite gods. Because Israelites were Canaanites.
Yeah. Because Yahweh, I think, was just like,
they were Palestinians, bitches.
Yeah. But no, they were special according to the stories. But yeah, Yahweh, from my understanding, was just the like Canaanite storm god, and there's even like traces of this
that was in the
right? Bible. Yeah, there was like El Elyon, I think. he was like the high god, and there's even traces of this. You can see it in Deuteronomy, and like different translations kind of fiddle with the wording, but like at least some of the oldest versions we had, I think in the way it is, where we found it in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it basically says, so El Elyon like kind of divided up the lands and gave each land to their god, and it basically says, and God gave, and the high god gave Yahweh Israel as his portion, and then Baal.
Yep.
Yes, I've heard that as well. So
yeah, there was like a combination of gods, I thought.
I was told there'd be cake. Like, just take one and pass. Take one and pass. Don't be selfish. Yeah.
I've had so many almost those exact situations at work and stuff. The puzzle
the puzzle in a thunderstorm, guys like to call the problem of evil jingly keys. Oh, you have a serious question about God? Look at my.
No, okay. That just reminds me of like a 5-minute clip I watched of William Lane Craig talk about the problem of evil, and that is his strategy. He's like, that's a great question. When I was blah blah blah, I'm an expert. Big words nobody here understands. And then he's like, allow me to talk about it this way, which is answering a different question usually. And
yes. And 5 minutes later, everyone is confused but satisfied.
Yeah, he's like credentials and big words and jingly keys and
So Baal is the storm god. That's right. Now I've also heard Yahweh. Maybe I'm just remembering.
Yahweh was the fertility god. Is that right? Originally,
I hadn't heard that one. That might be, but
I remember like that's like a lot of the plowing the field, and part of it's because it was like an agrarian origin for like Hebrew culture, but there's like a tension, but never mind, I'm getting in the weeds in my own head.
Yeah, so anyway, eventually like the Israelites decide, all right, Yahweh, he's our dude. He's actually,
if he can't do it, no one can.
Yeah, and if he doesn't allow it, no one's allowed to can.
Yeah, no, that's the whole thing. Oh man, like like violent zealots and stuff. Rah, he's our man. If he can't do it, no one can. We'll burn everything to the ground. Plowing something, something.
I mean, if you read like like we've referenced Stavrakopoulos' book, God and Anatomy. Apparently, he had quite the plowing device.
Yeah, there's a whole chapter on his ding dong.
I mean, it filled the temple. Apparently,
maybe that's why church bells ring. Is that like? Ooh. Is that just the sound it made when it like smacked from one leg to the other?
So apparently, fertility was also Baal. So Baal is just a selfish fucker hogging up all the cool god powers, like storms and fucking. That's me. I'm like,
and then the Yahweh people
something
were
for the rest of us, dude.
Like, our dad's better than your dad. Our dad can beat up your dad. Let me call down fire and show you.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe your God just shows up instead of just, being like magic trick, burn this shit. Like,
he can do the magic trick, but maybe if he like showed up and then did the magic trick and say, hey, this is me doing the magic trick.
Also, what if what's his name poured some oil on top of the water and dropped a match on it? Or they didn't have matches, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
they just told him, yes, this is totally water. But it was actually like vodka or something.
It kind of seems like that Bible story could be like the audience's portrayal of a magic trick.
I like that.
Supposedly, the magicians could do things like turn staffs into snakes and back into stabs and stuff. So, I mean, burning water shouldn't have been hard.
So yeah. So what are some other ways that like the theists or whatever or Christians particularly will try to explain away the problem of evil?
One that always pisses me off is we don't know God's plan. God's will is unfathomable. Like,
yes,
His goodness is better than our goodness. Like all that kind of stuff. Where,
ways
like,
beyond, mysterious ways.
Just wave your hands. Nothing to see. Nothing to see here. You can't see me.
Yeah, which always to me like that raises the question. Okay, well, if he's so mysterious, how do you know?
Yeah, if it's unknowable, how are you so sure it's unknowable? Oh,
mm-hmm. But yes, Vincent
how would you
confirms.
even
Yeah,
know it does the real?
but yes, Yahweh was the lesser god who was given to Israel. Yes, all right, confirmed. I feel vindicated.
Feels like Israel was sloppy seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, El
The
Elyon was
storm
like,
and
yeah,
fertility god like was done, and then Yahweh got Israel.
yeah, I done stormed and plowed that field. So
What's it like? Habakkuk? Is that Habakkuk? Or is this like Israel's a dirty whore? It's like the whole point of that book.
Or I know that was Hosea, because that was like the prophet where like God made him marry a prostitute. Well, Hosea was the prophet that God told to marry a prostitute. So God could be like, there, see how that feels? This is what you're like.
You're like, damn, you're a mean son of a bitch.
But yeah, but as Susan says here,
it's
yeah,
like, that's not how you solve problems.
Right? But yeah, that's the whole God's timing and all that shit. So obnoxious.
Seriously, like we're in the middle like of
mysterious ways, man.
There's more than one genocide happening in the world right now. There's one in with the Rohingya people, but
which is like more than one too many.
Yeah, the one in the Middle East is the one that we can actually do something about because, and I can't get over this. And I've said this to people who are like supporters, of Israel. And this is a slight tangent, but I'm almost done. Like, they only have enough weapons to continue the genocide for about 5 days. It's like if we stopped giving them weapons, they would run out in about 5 days because they couldn't burn through their stock because they have to keep some on hand. So sure, they have more than 5 days worth of ammo on hand, but they can't just burn it through everything. So like this is America's genocide now. Like, yeah, for real. We'd never tangent, Susan.
Yeah, this is the first. We figure, hey, it's new night, new us, right?
So yeah, problem of evil.
But yes, Hosea was the told to take a wife of whoredoms, which that sounds much better than prostitute.
I mean, that sounds
next time I go to like the red light district in where is that? Netherlands, Amsterdam. We're like, I'm here for the whoredoms. Yeah.
See, that sounds like she's like really good in her field, right? If she's of whoredom, like she's like of the industry.
Like, yeah, I have a PhD of whoredom. I'd like to sit in on that dissertation. I mean, what?
Oh, sitting in. There's a pun in there too.
So yeah,
no, it was to the whole timing problem of evil thing, and like, so that kind of works when you're talking about things in the past, but when there is something that like humanity should be able to agree is evil, like this shouldn't happen, kind of thing. It just sounds really tone deaf, and another word I isn't coming to me right now, where it's like, well, it's just. It's just not time for that group of people to survive. Like, no, if they don't survive now, they don't survive. It's not like, oh, they'll be fine later. That's not how genocides work, man.
No, but you see, like eventually, like with the whole like resurrection at the end, and like they're in heaven now, Matt. So as our buddy, like
Jesus
Bill
is
Craig,
gonna come back and kill them all anyway with his giant sword, which is surely not a euphemism.
It's even in his mouth. I'm sure that's not a
gay.
Or as Ray Comfort would say, the sword. It's a perfect example of God's design because it fits so perfectly in the mouth.
Or as what was it from Community? What's his nuts? That the guy, the teacher on there, where he goes gay.
Oh yeah.
Chang,
Senior Chang. Yeah.
It's one of the best gifts where he goes gay. Because especially when you use it against somebody who has a problem with gay people, that's like the only time it's appropriate.
Yes. Yeah. See, Susan knows.
Yeah. Chang.
And Vincent also always knows, I guess. I assume. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We've talked about him before.
Ray Comfort's a muppet of a human being.
We're going to have to do, I think we might have to do a whole episode on him and his, like, specifically his, like, street evangelism tactics and.
Yeah. If we could play like a bunch of his street evangelism stuff and we just heckle. like we're there in the crowd, you know?
Yeah. Now speaking of Ray Comfort, evil. Now Susan has a good point, Matt. You may need to apologize.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Don't insult Muppets like
even
that.
Statler and Waldorf, who are like probably as close to a villain as you get, they're still pretty lovable. In fact, that's probably our show. It's like we're the Statler and Waldorf of podcasts.
Mystery Not Science 3000. Now, did you? So here's my brain. It's like I'm not sure if he meant to type Mystery Science Theater 3000 or if the Mystery Not Science 3000 is its own joke that I just don't get.
We could do like a pun on the 700 Club.
Oh, so that's what it would.
Theater
Okay,
700.
I think I see what you're saying, Vince. Like, so you're saying if we did a thing like a live reaction to Ray, that would be a Mystery Not Science because Ray is very much not science. Yes,
I can't tell if he's
I'll take that as confirmation.
I can't tell if he's
all right.
Really good at being stupid, or he's
well, that's definitely true.
Or he's like really good at marketing an idea. Like he's excellent at propaganda. Like Goebbels was excellent at propaganda.
Yeah. Now, this might need to be what we call it because we've also talked about because Derek Day, our buddy, had an idea about basically Mr. Science Theater 3000ing a like sermon or something, and we were going to have him on for that at one point. So this might be what we need to call that.
I don't know if it would be the first episode, but I think we definitely need to do one where we watch the Crossroads deconstruction.
Oh yeah, that I don't know if that. Yeah, I don't want to do like a MST3K treatment to that. That's something I think we really need to like actually like drill into.
That's true.
Yeah, and
because that was like the best at being bad at that. That was
So
they nailed the bad stuff.
Yeah. So for people who aren't familiar with Crossroads Church here in Cincinnati,
or was it Crossroads National with their online presence?
Yeah, I mean, they at least started here in Cincinnati, so we apologize everywhere else. But that's the church we used to go to, and we used to think they were like the awesomest thing ever. But unfortunately, this was like after I'd already left, because if I was actually deconstructing during this time and had actually been there to see this, like I don't. I may have made a scene, but so because they did a series on
if we start
deconstruction.
Protesting? Like, can we just like stand? We can stand on the sidewalk. I think up to a certain number of people, you don't need a permit.
Now that would be kind of awkward because my kids still go there.
Hi, kids.
Anyway, but yeah, they did.
We just hold signs up, right? That we're not we're not anti-Crossroads. The signs just say "Do better."
Oh, I love
that.
You're
better than this. Do better. No, because the do better thing is absolutely like the mode that the church is in right now. You know, it's like perform better, be stronger, blah blah. Like they're kind of like the JV apocalypse warriors.
Yes, old like Bone Thugs and Harmony. Yeah.
Or covers of worship songs where we change the lyrics.
Or there's Kevin Sorbo's Hercules throwing his head back and going, disappointed. I don't know specifically what that's a reference to. I mean, I know that Kevin Sorbo's Hercules, but
excuse me, I should have.
But I feel it. But yeah. So anyway, so Crossroads did this series on deconstruction, and to just give you a hint on how well it went, they titled it Rock Solid. And I should have known just from that. Like, I just should not have watched it, but I watched the whole damn thing. Like, it was like over 4 weeks, but of course, how they do things. There was the like live, like in person, like on site sermon, and then there was the online version of the sermon delivered by somebody else. And like both were horrible, but yeah,
it was. Yeah, well, basically, it. My metaphor would be it's like when tough love turns rapey. When you're like, oh, just pretty sure no one feel how I'm feeling.
Yeah, or I think the way we kind of described it at the time was like gaslighting the series.
Right.
Because they literally would say things like, well, this is why you're really deconstructing, you know, all that bullshit. But
I sent an email to that guy who did the online version. That's one I saw, and he was like,
he did one of them, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He was like, I don't. He bristled at the gaslighting accusation, and I was just kind of like, I am not ready to have this conversation. He like wanted to talk in person or something, and I was just like, at that time, I was not in a place where like I would have been okay talking to him in person because it was a really raw thing. Now I might take him up on it.
No, yeah, you should definitely email him back. But but Susan with the pro tip for everyone: just Google Kevin Sorbo disappointed. All right, I will have to do that. So
I'm really curious which Sorbo we're gonna get. Is it gonna be the one like the Christian movie Sorbos or Andromeda, that show, which I kind of like love to hate? I mean,
well, she made it sound like it was a Hercules thing.
That's what I'm thinking.
So yeah. All right. So anyway, problem of evil. So it's like, I swear we're actually going to talk about this tonight. But okay, so I guess maybe we could like start here. So for me, and again, specifically
with such an unwieldy topic.
I know.
It's like
it's
like a dildo octopus.
The dildo octopus.
Wait. Okay, I don't know if you'll get this, Tommy, but would that be the
hashtag dildo octopus? Make it happen, folks. Right up there with fuck the moon. We're gonna get something to trend.
Shoot, what's that? What's the bad guy group called in Captain America?
I don't know.
Red Skull's in charge of it.
Yeah,
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were against that group. Damn it, I should know this. I watched that show. Anyway, their logo was an octopus with 6 tentacles, and it formed the letters 666 and then backwards on the other side. And so I'm thinking it would be like the same thing, but like all the tentacles just be like just be straight out instead of all curly like.
Now here's a concept. So Dodoctopus or Dodoctopus Hydra.
Oh, damn it! I should have known that.
I
used to love that show until it got piss poor. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. Anyway.
Sorry, I was just imagining a dildo Hydra. Anyway. Hail Dildoctopus. Now, what? I have an idea for what the salute for that might be, but
I feel like it's like the Spaceballs salute.
I don't want to lose all our viewers, so I'll refrain.
What is that, like the Spaceballs salute where they go like they go?
Yeah. Oh fuck. Yeah. So. All right. So I guess maybe one way to kind of reapproach the idea, because like as Christians love to say, like, well, we've already dealt with the problem of evil. It's not a problem anymore. So it's like, never mind that they haven't really, like, they've come up with answers, not necessarily good ones. But for me, and this is only like a realization I made recently, and this is again, talking about like the Christian God of the Bible, however you want to say it. As I said before, I guess not. Yeah, not me with my headphones on in the kitchen yelling Hydra. Well, we appreciate it. Yes. And they do claim it's covered by the finished work of Christ, but I don't know how good he finished it if it's still happening.
Well, I thought he won on the cross. It's like he won,
Yeah.
but like the victory didn't happen yet.
Yeah, we got it. Go team. But
yeah,
yeah,
I watched NT Wright.
Yeah, I was
his
just
best impression of step 1 underpants. Step 3 prophet. And
yeah, phase 2. Yeah, that because I remember
he's like, Jesus does things, step 2, and then evil's dealt with. Or like, what?
Yeah, because so you sent me a couple videos. There was that one of NT Wright discussing it, and there was another one of John, Irish mathematician guy.
John Nickelnuts. I don't know what his name was.
Yeah. Fuck, what's his name?
Somebody used to say that when I was in high school, when somebody was like fishing around in their pocket, looked like they were jerking off, and then somebody would go, "What you doing, making change, nickel nuts?"
Well, that's what I'm gonna call it now. But anyway, so NT Wright, he when he was talking about it, he talked about, I don't know if he used the words like, but the yes, Lennox, that was it. John Lennox. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was watching both these videos, and there was something that NT Wright said that it seemed like in a way kind of negated some of the arguments that Lennox was making, but I'll see if I can even remember what that was, and we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, but one of the things that NT Wright was talking about, how he said, like, the work of Christ on the cross, he said, it defeated evil ultimately, but it still like happens. And it's a mystery. That's kind of essentially what he said. Like, we don't know exactly how it works.
We're not wrong.
We just know it did.
Yeah, we're not wrong. We just don't understand.
Yeah, though I kind of prefer your initial spelling of Linux. That might have to become canon now. So
is that like French, like Linux?
Linux. But yeah, but that I mean, there was so much of like what NT Wright and really like any of these like apologists like addressing the problem that to me just sound. I mean, I just keep coming back to the word ad hoc, or is it 2 words? It's 2 words, sure, Latin. But it's like they forget their own idea that God is actually completely in control of everything. It's like they view the problem of evil is like, well, it's something that was already there, but God has kind of tried to figure out ways to work with it and see how brilliant he is that he's able to like work all this stuff out. It's like damn, he made the damn problem in the first place. So yeah.
So Vincent
the algae here.
It's best understood as already, but not yet. And it's like, yeah. But it's kind of like that's such a, I don't know. To me, that seems like, no, I get that. I used to be on board with that. But to me, that feels like a sci-fi show answer. It's like the flux capacitor does the thing, and time travel. It's like we kind of have a reason, and then
it's like what? It's like what? Because you went 88 miles per hour. Why does that work? Because the flux capacitor.
Science, man. It's just how it is.
Ooh. So now I might be interested if you can actually explain that. If you want to type, or I can, if you want, I can like throw out the link if you'd rather like jump on and maybe like give a in-person description. But yeah. So, but for me, like I said, it's almost like they forget that they've already cast God as this like omnipotent character who like literally made everything. And so like the way they have him approaching problems is if he's just like happened upon this problem and like MacGyvered a way to figure it out and make it work. But this is something like that.
I need a cross, some sour wine, and nails.
and a big fucking hollow rock, but owned by a rich guy. But
whoa,
because like clearly this is the only way to make
this. We're getting a little complicated. I don't know if we have the budget for this.
That's all right. I'll pass the plate.
Don't forget the gum. Yes, there's always like
that's
what
key.
is it? I remember I think he made a new fuse using like chewing gum and like the wrapper from the gum or something. No, he chewed the gum, used the wrapper to make a new connection on the fuse, which then made it work. Even though gum wrapper paper has a layer of like foil and paper, it didn't work, but I loved it. He drove a Jeep with some dynamite in it after that, I think.
So speaking of what I've been trying to say, so this whole idea, it's like forgetting that God is apparently actually the one who's in charge of all this stuff, and he just kind of happened upon it, and we just think he's so brilliant for figuring out a way to make things work. So like the way that it occurred to me recently is because that's really what all these apologetic arguments about the problem of evil really are trying to do, is basically trying to get God off the hook, you know. But if this God is what you claim, if he is completely omnipotent, if he literally created everything, like reality itself, including the rules within it, and because I think this takes care of the whole like free will argument. It's like, well, but these are the consequences for our decisions. Okay, well, who made it so that this is how those consequences work?
Yeah.
So if you're going to tell me that God literally created everything, he created this reality, all of its systems, the way that it works, everything from scratch, as in there was no way he had to make it, he literally made it how he wanted it. There, in that view, there can be absolutely nothing that is not his fault.
Yeah.
And I just do not see a way around that.
I think that's where like the it's all part of God's plan comes from. And you know, no step 2, we assume it's good. Like God's plan, it's good. Why? That's step 2. We get to know that in heaven.
And I always have to read this in Liam Neeson's voice too. But, do not speak to me of the deep magic, which I was there when it was written. Yeah.
What's that from?
Narnia.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Yeah, he was the voice. Liam Neeson was the voice of Aslan.
I've never read it. I think that's why I didn't see it.
Yeah.
It's because I wanted to read it before I saw it.
Yeah, I've never read it either. Like, shocker, I know for people who know me, but I've seen the first time I saw it actually was I was in preschool, and we went to see a local high school where I grew up. They did a performance of it, so that was the first time. Then I think maybe in second grade, like one of my teacher like read it to us, and then I saw the movie. Yeah,
dude, I had a teacher read us Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Dude, that's a sad fucking story.
Yeah, like I was in like third grade.
Okay, I was in fifth grade. But third grade, that's a lot to handle. I mean, because it's great until the carnage, and you're just like,
right. and it's like pretty graphic descriptions, especially like when like the one boy like falls on the axe and yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh,
Reuben, I think. Yeah, but I mean, you also got to remember. I went to a very like evangelical Christian school where they were like reading the Bible to us, like from the beginning.
Probably like he fell on the axe because God said it was good.
No, my point there was like we were already pretty familiar with some pretty like vile graphic stuff.
Oh yeah. Don't. Do not lay hand and/or penis on my guests. Here is my daughters.
Yes. It's. I mean, I'm probably still recovering from that and many things.
7-year-olds are nasty work.
I mean, I wouldn't want to deal with them. I mean, I had a couple. Fortunately, it was only like one at a time. But
I think that's the age when kids realize like they're going to out-survive you. Like whatever, it's all mine.
Explains a lot.
Give me your best.
Yeah. So to me, I think Christians try in vain to try to let God off the hook, and they go to like some pretty like wild extremes, but I think like just with that, like ultimately you really can't. But then also I can even like one way I like to explain why the problem of evil is a problem. Like I can do it like just completely in the Bible from 2 verses with 6 words. This is like one of my favorite tricks. So you got in 1 John where it says God is love.
Mm-hmm.
And when I remember being taught about the Bible, okay, it's like, what's that? The substitution property. It's like, so basically anywhere where the Bible describes love, it's describing God.
Right.
And that's how we define love, is what the Bible says about love. So God is love. Okay. So what does the Bible say about love? Among other things, in the very famous love chapter in 1 Corinthians 13, I want to say, among so many other things, it says love always protects.
Yeah.
Well, now, if you can look at the world and tell me that God is always protecting.
He wasn't always protecting in the Bible either. He withdrew his protection, his provision and protection, which are the 2 things humans like crave: provision and protection, like the need to feel safe and fed and all that. And
yeah.
Yep.
It's good to be right. Thanks, Vincent.
That's another T-shirt one too. It's good to be right.
I want to get the T-shirt and or mug that just says like, "Sorry for having such corrupt opinions and great tits."
I got a snort. That was good.
I mean, I'd show you now, but we'll save that for the OnlyFans. Speaking of which, we need to start an OnlyFans. Anyway.
What would we do on it? No nudity. But...
well, maybe we need to start one for Vincent here. So...
Are they yours? Vincent's just like, well, I've got the tits. And he opens a freezer door. Like, Vinny.
Oh, that reminds me of this meme I saw. Like, so our 4-year-old just woke us up in the middle of the night and said, "I've got 10 fingers." And we've like been talking to him for 5 hours and he still won't tell us where they came from.
That's so good.
Sadly, yes. All right. Well, so this is taking a turn. But yeah, so. But yeah, so.
No, that's good.
That's love.
That's a can of worms for the like this. If we define love as the Bible defines love, then the God in the Old Testament and parts of the New Testament, maybe Jesus for that matter.
Yeah.
Because Jesus didn't seem patient with the woman that he was like treated like a dog. And she's like, even dogs get food, dick.
Yeah. And he like literally, like as we discussed, he basically called her a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, the COVID-19. Now,
COVID-25.
Hey, you do you, boo. But no, I do not recommend
the poundage. I got it.
Yeah. Now, I do not recommend the way I lost weight after COVID to people, which is I just like
you had
got a shitty job that had me on the road all day and got cancer. I don't recommend those, but yeah.
Is that when you were you still doing AV stuff then?
No, I actually got it in like the summer of 2020 is like, I think when I first noticed something going on back there. And then it was shortly after that, that's when I got the job like delivering for Amazon. So I was just like driving like all day and not eating much and, physically exerting myself.
I forgot that was 2020 where it was like COVID, the side of cancer.
Yeah,
it's like, here's all the things. Deal with it. Oh, and by the way, your marriage is falling apart. You'll find out later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why like in the past few years, like 2022 was probably the most chill for me, but then the way 2023 turned out, it wasn't actually so chill. So
So cocaine it is what Vincent says.
Yeah. But yeah, but also as Vincent says, like with Jesus talking to the poor lady that he was such a dick to. Yeah, only mentioned to the lost sheep of Israel. I mean, he said it, but...
And she's like, I may be an animal and even a dog because you called me a bitch, sort of. And or at least he agreed she's a bitch.
Yeah. And this is something... It's kind of nice. At least I think this was still the plan. I think in 2 weeks, we'll get to. This feels so weird that I actually feel like we already know like 2 weeks out from now.
Oh
like
my gosh,
we already kind of have our next 2 weeks planned as far as like what the episodes are going to be, which is weird. But I know like we're going to be doing our episode on Jesus. I think we're going to be doing it in 2 weeks, not next week, and I'll explain later because that's a special announcement we have coming up at the end.
We will be doing the episode from atop Jesus. Our episode on Jesus. Jesus, about Jesus.
That means I need to find a Jesus blow up doll.
Ooh.
To like be, or if I could get an inflatable chair that just looks like Jesus. Okay, viewers.
Like, wait, is that like if you want talking? It's like the talking stick thing where you like pass the talking stick like in therapy or something. Will we like pass the Jesus and then you have to sit on the Jesus?
Yeah, sit on his face. That's how he likes it. But so viewers, we got 2 weeks.
I feel like there's a John the Baptist pun in there somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Locust honey. I don't know.
This is a brilliant idea. Just get a skeleton and say it's Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
And not to spoil, but maybe we could reenact some scenes from the opening scene of Deadpool and Wolverine. Is our little homage. But okay, but people, okay, whatever this is going to look like, you got 2 weeks. If anyone can find and wants to send us any kind of Jesus thing that we could sit on or in or have as some kind of prop, let us know. We'll get you like our addresses or whatever and make this happen. You got 2 weeks.
I might have found it on eBay. There is something labeled diabolical inflatable Jesus.
Because really, can there be any other kind?
All right, how do I share? This is just funny.
It's
all right, screen share.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Select the tab to share. How the fuck do I select it? Select the tab.
Oh, the anticipation.
Oh, there it is. Okay. You see it there? You seem speechless.
But just why are his eyes closed though?
Because he's seen terrible things.
He's like, look, I know what you're doing with this. I just don't want to watch.
Or he's about to see terrible things. All right, how the fuck do I stop this now?
Here, I can.
Oh, okay.
It kind of looks like Rasputin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I need an old Rasputin after seeing that.
He's like sadly accepting. That's definitely like Garden of Gethsemane vibes. Like he's like sadly accepting.
Yeah, he's like do what you must.
Jesus, the sad bottom.
The sad what?
The sad bottom.
Oh, not my will, but yours.
Oh, Vincent, he is preparing for the second coming. He's that's why his eyes are closed. He's worn out from the first one.
Wow, multiple orgasms. Impressive. So,
Jesus is so great. He has got to come twice.
I think I've seen those videos. Anyway, so ways God is that I would say God is trying to get off the hook, but like Christians are trying to let God off the hook. So
right, yeah.
There's, like I said, like at least some of the more like biblical And yes, that would be the Godhead.
Gross.
But at least like some of the, but yeah, so to me, at least if you're having a more like fundamentalist or just like, biblical kind of Christianity where you're trying to keep with what the Bible says about him, like, yeah, just for verse like that, God is love, love always protects, makes no sense. You're telling me that God literally made everything and is ruling and is control of everything, then there's nothing that he can't be responsible for. I mean, the buck stops here.
Yeah.
Like, or as, the wise prophet Uncle Ben said, with great power becomes great responsibility. No. So then by that logic.
Yeah, as I say, you said it wrong. The nerd in me just went.
Sorry. So yeah, with great power comes great resspibility. I'm sorry. So
I didn't even want to have a problem with that. It's like my inner nerd just like grabbed the e-brake and was like,
you can't help it. Yeah. See, determinism. So by that logic, then so if God has ultimate power, then that must mean he has ultimate responsibility.
Yeah.
Or as I like to put it, like, so if he's omnipotent, that makes him omni-responsible.
Right, Tommy, but we have free will, right? And free will can override God's will. Or because he loves us. Because apparently love lets people do terrible things because they want to.
Yeah, because here's a good point, because that's actually pretty much where I was going with this. Because so fortunately, so there's the Christians who are like more like fundamentalists, like biblical. We got to go by the Bible. Now, fortunately, Christians have discovered an escape hatch from
apologetics
to just say well, we don't have to go by the Bible and just basically just make up. I mean, they wouldn't say this, but essentially, this was what kind of became my problem with progressive Christianity. It's just like you folks, like, it's literally like you're just making up whatever you can to try to make it work. So let's just go all the way.
But then they kind of make fun of hippies a little bit too, and like, nah, I don't think you know what's up.
Yep. I mean, if God is love, I guess threatening my kids, hey, if you don't love me back, I'm going to have to take you outside and throw you in a pit and burn you.
Yeah, I burned you,
but I won't. But I won't let you.
Abuser with a cigarette as he burned the child.
Right, but I won't let you die. I'm going to make sure
you live forever. Because I'm a merciful God.
Yeah. So because at that point, is that free will? Like, even in much lesser examples,
you lose it in hell.
Well, but even like the choice before that, like, do we say like if a mugger is like holding a gun to your head and saying, give me your wallet or I'll blow your head off? Like, we say that's force. We don't say that that's free will, but that's essentially the logic. It's like, well, he's still letting you choose. You're just choosing to get shot in the head. That's essentially what you're saying to the person. Like, you didn't like, you could have just given him your wallet. You had a choice. So that's why. So
if that ever happens to anyone,
not actually that complex. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're, here's the thing. People in TV shows, little tangent. People in TV shows, like in movies and stuff, maybe in real life too. Like, somebody pulls a gun on somebody, and they were like within arm's reach of the person. If you're within arm's reach of somebody who's pulled a gun on you, like, step aside and grab their wrist, and then like point it. Like, both of you are holding the gun, basically, like, away from both of you. I don't know. There's always a third option. Seems like people never.
Yeah, I've also seen like there's a move you can do, like if you have your hands up like this. If the gun's right in front of you, you just quickly like hit it like that. Like it'll like. Now, I'm sure that's a move you probably have to like practice and actually master. Otherwise, you could really fuck some shit up.
So I think what my brain was saying was that. There's always another option. It's like there's rarely a situation where it's like either this or that.
Yeah. So one of the solutions that like Christians have come up with to solve this is, and I'll just go ahead to like, at least from my perspective, like the way far, I don't know if it's left anyway, in whatever direction this is.
Vincent says that's how you die. So maybe disregard what I said.
Yeah. I mean, He may know. Yeah. Seems like a smart guy, and he's still alive, so he knows how to not die. So are you familiar with a Christian author, speaker, whatever, by the name of Thomas Ord?
Oh yeah, I kind of like him.
And his book God Can't.
Yeah, that was interesting.
So again, like so many of these things, I haven't actually read the book, but I've heard him talk about it, like in interviews and lectures and like on podcasts and stuff. So I feel like I'm at least familiar with the concept. So his point of view is, and I guess this is maybe a more like extreme version of like maybe someone like Greg Boyd, like his view of God is like, if God is love and part of their definition of love, it's like, I guess they kind of forget the whole always protects part and just say love just never forces. It never forces.
Like, well, you wouldn't force protection on somebody, would you?
Yeah, and so basically what Thomas Ord is saying is, well, God literally can't stop all this evil stuff from happening.
Because it's not his character.
Because he's had to give, it's not his character, because he gave us the free will. Now, never mind the problems of that this doesn't even address natural evil, because it's not like whose free will was it that like gave my aunt brain tumors that killed her?
Yeah.
Like how the hell does that factor in? Or whose free will? I mean, okay, sure, with like global warming, we're making it worse, but it's not like humans invented hurricanes. You know? But
I mean, they did a shit job if they did.
I know,
most of the time they're not even cool. So
yeah, so let's ignore natural evil. Let's just look at people. To say that like God just can't intervene because it would be a violation of our free will, and that's not love. I always just keep having to come back to, because again, like the Bible and like any good Christian will say, like they'll compare God to being a good father. I'm a father. I have 2 kids. I love both of my kids more than anything. If one of them was about to kill the other one, like, you're goddamn right, I would step in and violate their free will to keep that from happening. So this idea that it's somehow loving, like, I'm sorry, I know, like, this is one of the things that really just like sets me off is
Tommy has a trigger.
Oh, I have several. But it's like, have you really thought this through? And like among like so many other issues I have with this, first of all, like, you say like he can't violate our free will, but I mean, just the fact that he created us to begin with and put us in this situation. Like, I didn't ask to be put in a situation, like on a planet in a society where other people's free will could harm me, or I could make decisions to harm other people. Like, again, going back to God is the one who set this whole thing up. So there can be like, so even just on that principle, on the very basic level, there can be no absolute free will, because
we need a union.
Fuck yeah.
Humanity needs a union. God's not paying us enough to take this bullshit.
Yeah. But yeah, Vince,
I'm not even sure heaven's a benefit.
Yeah. Who's giving out tumors? Like, I mean, fortunately, I was able to send all mine back. Like, that's, I mean, the return policy on those things is a bitch, let me tell you.
0 stars. Do not recommend.
Yeah, ew, he free willed all over me. It's like, yeah. Could you not
get it off of me?
But yeah, but it's like you can't have. But yeah, just the fact that we were put here in this situation. So it's like, you can't say he gave us free will when he essentially denied our free will in the most basic sense by putting us in a situation that no one asked to be in. Like, but yes. I mean, that makes about as much sense as most apologetics, but
no, there's some really great Star Wars quotes like that. Only Sith deal in absolutes. It's like, he just shot evangelism in the face to evangelical Christianity, or kind of any fundamentalism.
and let the Wookiee win.
I was like, go team.
But yeah, so but my other problem with this view of God who can't apparently. So first of all,
like he's too good.
So
he's too good. He can't be bad.
But also effectively, and I was thinking about this, like, how is this any different from deism? Because if you're saying God can't interfere, then that's literally all it has to be is like he set the world in motion and it's like, all right, I'll let them do what they want and I can't interfere. Like that's deism. I don't know how that's not deism. But then if that's the case, and then this is also going back to something I brought up last week about that whole how it's supposed to be like comforting to tell us that, well, God, he's not going to take away your suffering or the problem, but he's there with you in the midst of it. It's like, that's bullshit, because the reason we go to God with this stuff is because he's supposed to be able to do more than that. So if your view of God is this God who just can't, then what the hell good is he? Like, then what's even there for?
Also, so the whole like being there with you in the misery or the suffering or whatever, that really, in my move towards deconstruction, that really did connect with me. Which means that like before that, like I was disconnected from the idea of God. You know what I mean? Like God was further away. So coming closer at least meant that he was in the suffering with me. It's just a weird thing that happened with me where like the closer I felt to God, also the closer I was to God disappearing. And I almost wonder if that wasn't the point.
But real quick, so Vincent says, actually very simple, I'd be happy to explain it. And then he does, because I was about to ask, what do you explain? Because I honestly didn't see when exactly this comment popped up. But deism holds that God walked away from the machine, and so he isn't paying attention to intervene. Now, I guess I do understand.
That sounds like science also.
Yeah, right?
So this one could be true.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I guess I should say I do understand the difference between like Ord's view of God and deism, but I guess to me, just on a practical level, like from our perspective, it's basically the same. It's like either way, you have God not intervening. But almost like on Ord's view, it's almost sadder because like he's just sitting there like watching helplessly and can't do anything. It's like that. It's like I feel sorry for that God, I guess. But because he really cares so much, but can't do anything.
But that is interesting how Ord's take on it is more of a blending of him and God. Because like that's how we are. That's how people are. Like there's terrible shit that happens in the world, and you're like, if I could do something about that, I would have that not happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So yeah, left the natural processes to run. Yeah, so like you were saying, Matt. Yeah, science essentially. Yeah, which that's why even like Richard Dawkins says like he can't even necessarily completely dismiss the idea of like a deistic God who just basically like that. Yeah, just set things in motion and just kind of fucked off or whatever. So, but yeah,
that's really that hadn't occurred to me before. Like that was Ord's picture of God in that situation where like all these terrible things are happening, but he can't do something about it because it's not in his nature. Like that's kind of the human like condition and dilemma, because like if something's terrible, if something terrible is happening, like someone is doing something terrible to someone else, to get that person to stop, you're gonna have to do at least as bad a thing to them. You know, maybe not exactly the same, but like kind of strength and category and all that. But
Ooh,
and so I think that's Ord getting even closer to atheism.
Yeah, and we'll get to this. I definitely want to hit that whole like fallen world theory as well. But yeah, that's interesting. Now, like because go figure, people's image of God matches themselves. Like seems to be a running theme throughout like all of humanity ever.
The closer I was getting to God, the closer I was getting to being an atheist. And
well, he works in mysterious ways, man.
Yeah. So like the whole process of getting here, not the whole process, but I mean, like I felt like I went from like one good thing to another, like better thing. And then I was just kind of like Truman Show out the door. Hello, world.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to describe it. But yeah, so I have all those issues with Ord's view, but really the main issue I have with his view, and again, this goes back to like my views with like any of these apologetics, or really like ultimately anything about like Christianity or faith or religion. It's like, okay, that's a nice theory. How do you know that's actually the case? Is he presenting that view because he actually has reason to believe that is the case, or is he presenting this view because he's trying to think of the only way to actually make reality match with him still believing in some kind of God? So he has to come up with a kind of God that still fits. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, that's it is an interesting phenomenon where you change the story in order to make sense of the facts or the present or whatever.
Yeah.
So then, in a way, the story does get more true or like more accurate as a metaphor.
Yeah, there's that part. Yeah. But yeah, because this is another topic I want to discuss on an episode sometime, is like that whole like faith versus science conflict, and how like Christians keep telling us that their faith doesn't conflict with science. We'll say, well, it doesn't conflict with good science, which I mean that kind of gives the game away there. But
no true Scotsman science.
They just no true Scotsman the entire field of scientific study. But
and then when all else fails, they're not the true Scotsman. The problem is I'm confused. I don't see the truth, you know.
Yeah, God's the only true Scotsman, so fuck everyone else. But when I compare like the religious approach versus the scientific approach, it's like, because the scientific process, you have a theory, you do your research, you develop falsification criteria, you do your experiment to see if you can falsify it. You have your observations, you like repeat, like more observations. And then eventually you come up with a theory. It's like, okay, well, we haven't been able to falsify this. And so far, all the experiments and evidence that we've gathered is pointing towards it. So this is what we're going with.
Mm-hmm.
Scientific method. Sorry if I butchered any of that.
And then you change it when it's wrong.
Yeah. But the apologetic method is essentially just stop at the theory stage, claim that it's untestable,
profit,
and is therefore proven correct because you couldn't prove it wrong.
It's like this game sucks and the rules are dumb and
all right. So let's like I said, before we move on to like what Vincent is saying here, anything else on the whole like God can't, like that kind of view that you want to like touch on?
No, I there's an interesting conversation I think people should find. I think it was on Greg Boyd's podcast, which is called Renew, I think.
Yeah, Reknew.
Yeah, they talked to Ord, him and his little minion guy. They talked to Thomas Ord about that book God Can't, and it was a really interesting conversation. I hope I'm not making it up, and I dreamt that this happened.
I think it did. I think I heard it too.
Okay,
yeah.
But I remember it being very interesting just to hear people with very similar theological points of view end a conversation still thinking they're thinking different things. That was really interesting, and hearing just the nuance between like such adjacent viewpoints sheds a lot of like insight on just dealing with other people with slightly different opinions in general. It was pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah, so look it up, folks. Yeah, Greg Boyd, Renew with Thomas Ord. Make sure that's actually a thing.
OORD.
Yeah, which that's a cool name, you gotta say. And Thomas, obviously, I appreciate that.
I feel like his family's crest has just full of hammers.
I don't know why, but yes. Most apologetics are built on proving the Bible true using mostly internal evidence. Right? It's all presuppositional.
Because that's how you find the facts, man.
Yeah.
Is you say, we're only going to look under this rock for all the facts.
Or, yeah. Or, like, I think it was Alex Malpass. I love that guy. He's a philosopher. You heard of him?
Also, how is this still a thing I can just switch back on? How do we get rid of this?
Well, you have
source.
to.
There we go.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Sorry, I just realized that was there. He's just in the wings going, I'm here.
Jesus is watching you with his eyes closed. It's kind of creepy. But yeah, so Alex Malpass, the way he described, I don't remember if he was talking about specific apologetics or maybe just certain arguments, but he said it's almost like shooting an arrow and then going to where it lands and just drawing a bullseye around it.
Yep.
So it's like, see, it's like that whole concept of like, well, if you define God as the source of all things that are good, and then see, look, all the good things are evidence for God. It's like, well, that's only just because how you defined him. But yeah, all right. So let's move on because like, let's see. So yeah, Matt just sent me something in the private chat that I heartily agree with, but maybe folks will find out later. So what Vincent's saying, another way that Christians try to, sorry, I missed one. So yeah, so most Christians believe that the bad things that happen because we live in a fallen world. Common argument. Essentially, the fall of Adam corrupted man, and that the devil is in control of the world because we gave the keys to him, which was kind of a stupid move on our part.
And I'd like to argue
so
that Adam and Eve didn't really have free will because they didn't know what evil was. Right. So the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they're like, what even is that? Like everything here is good so far. So there's this new word, like, I guess that's good too. And
plus,
so like how's it free will when you like, not that you don't understand the consequences, you are not aware that like you have no context for these consequences. God's like, sin will enter the world, and they're like, okay. I have no reference for that. What?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically, and probably even to a greater degree, because at least we have a concept in our language, but it's almost like someone speaking a different language to you. So it's like, okay, it's like if Matt, let's say like if you didn't know German and I say, okay, Matt, if you do that, that'd be very schlecht.
Like,
and I'm not going to, and now because this thing will give you the knowledge of what schlecht is.
Yeah.
But don't do it, because if you do it, that'd be very schlecht.
Yeah. And so up to this point, like everything that I know, God eventually told me. So I'm just like, oh, I guess it's not time to know that. And then you're like, and then, oh, just to add on to what you said, then you're like, oh, that fruit does look kind of good. Maybe I do want to eat it. And then you think, well, God said schlecht would happen if I did that. So if Schlecht was like apocalyptic, turn the world on its head bad, he would have told me, right? Like in terms I understood.
Right.
Instead of just saying, don't eat that. Right. Now, you could say God did say more than that, but it's not recorded, so we shouldn't assume that.
Ooh. Now Matt and chat. Huh?
Matt and chat.
Remind me, because I definitely want to get to this point, because I want to go through the whole like fallen world theory as well. But one idea I definitely want to get to is the idea of, with an all good God who apparently like pervades and like is the ground of all being and is the reason anything exists. Like, if the very source of everything is all good, then how can bad even be a thing to begin with? That's another thing I want to get to. But first, the whole idea of this just being a fallen world. So the way I like to answer, like when people say, like if you ask like, well, why does this happen? And why do people do bad things or whatever? It's like, well, it's because of our brokenness. Okay, well, if you're blaming me for being broken, again, going back to, okay, well, God being the one who actually designed all this, like, so when people tell me I'm broken, my response is always, okay, well, who made me so fragile? It's like, why didn't God build me stronger?
Or
undeceivable. Yeah, so that we wouldn't break so easily. Like, why make us so corruptible? Why make it so that we are so susceptible to sin? Because like, I mean, think of this. The way at least the evangelical or like maybe more traditional view is, so apparently, okay, you can become a Christian, you can become a follower of Jesus, but that's the thing with you. And it might be like a communal thing, but we're always told, okay, but just because you're a Christian doesn't mean your kids are going to be Christian. You still got to raise them up. So apparently being saved and redeemed and like God's power in that sense isn't good enough to just pass down like through the generations. But apparently sin is. Like literally all it took was like those two people to sin. And now that was powerful enough to affect all of us. But the redemption is not that powerful. So you're essentially telling me that sin is more powerful than God's redemption. Which, make that make sense.
Yeah, it almost has to be.
Yeah, so and God had to have known that this was going to happen. I mean, whether you take that whole, like, the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, literally or not. Like, if you're, like, it still comes down to however it was that sin entered the world and corrupted everybody and made us fallen. Like, God had to know that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He had to know the mechanism by which it was going to happen, and he didn't prevent it.
So this must be good, then. See how it's like a circle? Like, you just have to break out of the circle.
No, but they tell us that evil clearly exists.
That's something we can all. That's something that we can all agree on, is that like there are things that happen and exist that feel absolutely evil, and I want them to go away.
Yes, it just says we can rebuild him. Tithe your $6 million now.
Cyber Jesus.
Yeah, never mind that whole idea of that, like, God is also all powerful, but apparently needs our money. But yeah,
right, Tommy. He doesn't have dollars.
That's why I save 10% by switching to atheism. So, yes, another good point here. So, original sin is purely a Christian idea. Jewish people do not interpret the text the same way. I know, right? That's something like I always wonder, like,
I think that was trying to find the solution that Jesus' death was solving, because like they thought he was going to be the Messiah and do like an earthly kingdom and stuff, and then he died, and they're like, "Oh, sunk cost."
Cognitive dissonance, help me now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Oh, so he was solving like the worst problem."
Because we have the technology.
That's what that meant in the beginning.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's like they retrofitted it. It's a retcon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what all this. That's what I mean. All these explanations are just trying to retrofit. It's like, because the disconnect for me is like the reason things like the problem of evil are such problems is like, because Christians, like, or whatever faith, will try to explain this away. They'll say, well, we've made sense of like how the world is, and like we found a way to make it work with our view of God, even if it means changing our view of what God is. But to me, it's like, no, you got to look. To me, I think you got to look at it the other way. Is if you're because they'll start with the world as it is, and then try to explain it and still make it fit. To me, it's like, no, you got to. The way to really make it make sense is start with your concept. Okay, you have your idea of what God is. You tell me he's this way. Now, starting from there, with that, given that kind of God, what kind of world would you actually expect to come from that kind of God? And this world just does not match that. And that is why apologetics is a thing, basically.
But here's the weird thing. Like, religious people who have their like particular picture of the world how they think the world is and where they think it's going, their actions tend to create something that looks like that. Like the problem in the Middle East right now, how we're on the verge of a conflict, and go figure, it's all the world's religions who believe in an end times battle are careening towards a world war situation. I mean, everybody else is like, what the fuck are you doing? And you're like, none of what you believe might be false. You know what I mean? None of what you believe might be true. Like, or might not. I don't know what I was saying, but it's like, can we just give you guys like your own part of the planet to just fight it out? Like, just the people who want to have the big fight that's going to end all fights that won't, and then new religions are going to be created, or Christianity will poop out a new version, and to like make sense and continue to fight the battle that's not there. And
just go to Greenland and duke it out. And
seriously, it's going to be greener pretty soon. I mean,
yay. But as Vincent says, the view of God is and always has been a moving target. That was one of my like ultimate frustrations with it. Like the way I like to put it, it's like, you can pick any religion for this, probably, maybe not others, but at least like Christianity, like, you ask 10 different Christians to define God, you'll get like 30 different answers. So
that's like the joke I just heard from a Jewish person on TV. He said, I don't know. The punchline was something to do with like when you have when two Jews are together, you have three opinions.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, so that's even funnier. Like Christianity is just Judaism on crack. So it's like 10 Christians, 30 opinions. That tracks.
But the thing with Christian is like they do it maybe in some ways even more like hardcore midrash, but insist that they're being fundamentalist and it's one message.
Right, they're midrashing themselves hard.
Your midrash is showing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like a masturbation or an abuse metaphor.
Ooh,
in that situation, kind of seems like both. It's like sadobation. Sadobation.
Or masochism.
Oh, that sounds like that might involve a circumcision also. And I mean, if you're like really into masochism or whatever, then like maybe that you'd be on board with that, but I don't know.
Oh man,
I don't like it.
Yeah,
it's evil.
Speaking of evil and how much of a problem it is. So here's the thing that I asked other people to remind me of, but no one did. Damn it. But first, so Vincent here had a professor in college who said that modern Judaism and Christianity are not mother and daughter, they are sisters. They are both the children of Second Temple Judaism. Oh, yeah. I could see that.
Okay, that reminds me of it. I like that. And it reminds me of something that the Myth Vision guy said about that one rabbi that he talks with a lot.
Tovia Singer.
Yeah, so Rabbi Singer, he had this joke. It was God made Mormons so Christians would understand how Jews feel.
Well, that's fucking brilliant.
I was like, oh yeah, I was totally in a cult.
And if you see him
like a sideline cult kind of thing.
Yeah, and one of the things that Singer does, at least I see him do it on the Myth Vision podcast, probably does it other places too, but one of this thing, it seems like he's doing this on purpose, but like when people will ask, like viewers will like put in a comment, like asking him a question that's supposed to be kind of like a gotcha question, like, oh, what are you going to say to this? But he actually turns it and like turns around to show that what they think they're saying is actually disproving their point, and it leads him to say like a thing that like totally destroys what they're trying to say. And he always ends with like, good question. Thanks for asking. That was great.
Yeah. That's disarming. I like it. No, it's kind, but it's also disarming because the person's like, oh, what? Okay.
It's like, thanks for owning yourself. That was fantastic. Yeah. But yes. people often do forget that after 70 AD and the destruction of the temple, the Jewish world had to refocus on the text because there was no longer a temple to bring sacrifices. Yep. I mean, that's going to be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the
I mean, in one way, say, well, Jesus was the final sacrifice.
I forget which one of the Gospels it was, but there seemed like one of the Gospels was focused on helping Christian Jews deal with like the disappearance of the temple. Of course, their solution was that like Jesus is the temple within you, kind of thing. Like you are the temple. I don't know. It's just there's just too many metaphors, and
that were not intended for us.
They all overlap to some degree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where they overlapped, like maybe that's like the truest part of it, but apparently no one who wrote anything down could really nail the bullseye on that. So we've just got like everybody just dancing around the idea.
Well, they clearly should have taken the Malpass method and shot the arrow first and just draw their bullseye.
So, this is kind of why I like if somebody believes in God or is a Christian or whatever, and they're not going to listen to me talk about reasons why it all might not be true, but yeah, there's this thing about God they're kind of toying with, and like that's a better version of being a human, whatever they're toying with, or a healthier them, like it's like more psychologically healthy. Like I'll help them believe that if I can't help them see past that, because in my experience, the closer you get to God, if you just keep going, like I'm not saying I got as close to God as possible and now I'm an atheist. I'm saying like there's some path that goes there, and I don't know at what point I jumped off that path and got to the end, but
yeah, it's like how like the closer, I guess this is a great metaphor, is like it's like the closer you zoom into like subatomic particles, like down to the quantum level, eventually they all just kind of disappear.
Yeah. It's like we got to get okay with the disappearance of just like, everything that we see is our interpretation of whatever is not this cluster of cells, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that's essentially what I was doing, like near the end of my faith, was like I was just like reaching out like to like people with all different kinds of views and like just trying to find something I could latch onto. But like the more I was learning about like every single view of God, it's like none of these are completely coherent. Like they all like are self-refuting on some level. So it really is like the deeper you dig, the more everything just kind of disappears.
So. Yeah. And I would say in short, as we would describe real, none of this is real.
No, that's in short, for sure. Yeah. But this comment might be real. Let's see. The loss of the temple effectively does the same thing as Jesus' sacrifice, tearing the veil and making the temple unnecessary. Yeah. So they both land in a similar place. Jews are waiting for the Messiah, and Christians are waiting for the Messiah to return.
And we're both waiting. I flashed back in time.
So that's not you anymore, Matt.
No, like when we're talking about stuff, sometimes I'll get back in my old mindset.
For sure.
Discuss it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
No, the Revelation Jesus does look a whole lot like what the modern Jewish Messiah is expected to be.
Right. Sorry, real quick. You keep talking. I need to pee. I'll be right back.
Okay. So, like the conservative Jewish people seem to, just from what I've watched, and I'm possibly very wrong, just from what I've watched on YouTube from different commentary sites. So the Jewish Messiah is going to be kind of a nationalistic Messiah, and make Israel like New Jerusalem coming down. Israel is like undisputable champion of the world and just kicks everyone's ass and all that stuff. But that also sounds a lot like AR-15 Jesus, who's going to come back and slaughter everybody with the sword in his mouth, slaughter everybody who doesn't agree and believe and all that. It seems kind of similar. Now, admittedly, the Christian Messiah Jesus coming back is just way more brutal and bloodthirsty. Like, so it's kind of like Jewish Messiah action movie, Christian Messiah horror film, or it's kind of like it's a war film, but a horror film. It's like a horror film set in a war scenario.
Yes.
Blood up to the horses' bridles, man, for 200 miles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're all just waiting for Godot. Mm-hmm.
Gal Gadot?
I'm still waiting for... I haven't seen Waiting for Godot, but I have seen the Mystery Science Theater 3000 little like sketch when they were watching the movie Gorgo. They came up with their little like Waiting for Gorgo. That was fun. Anyway, so I guess we're going to try with me on this side now. See how that works.
Oh, no.
No. Okay.
I just realized that was happening.
I mean, that's not a thing, as you were.
As I was.
Are you cool with this? Or do you need me to put it back? Or
no, I'll deal.
All right. Let me know if this becomes a thing.
I was just thinking that, like looking at Gal Gadot, I could maybe be persuaded there is a master race. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I would agree. I'm just saying like somebody could make that point more easily. I don't know.
Yeah, if you needed,
I'm exaggerating. That's hyperbole.
Right. But yes, they are similar because both stories are drawn from apocryphal texts, which attempt to answer for and deal with an external oppressive force.
Yeah, weirdly, it also seems a bit human-y.
A little bit, yeah. It tends to.
That solution to that problem.
Yeah. All right, so back to the thing that I asked you all to remind me to bring up again, but nobody did. So
I was just thinking, like, that's such a primal instinct. It's like, is it bad? Mm-hmm. Kill it with fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
pretty much. Apparently we're all bad.
The biggest of the big will kill the biggest of the bad with the biggest of fire. It's like revelation.
All right, so a concept to me that, and this was one of the things, like even in my, as I like to refer to, like my final form as a Christian, I was a universalist panentheist, meaning that I believed that like God was just like in through and just like completely permeated everything. Mm-hmm. So, and this is even like something I remember like asking you at the time. Like I was still consider myself Christian. I wasn't considering leaving the faith. This was still like a problem for me. Like I just could not make sense of it. It's like, okay, so if God is complete goodness and is literally permeating everything, then how can there even possibly be anything that is not completely good? Because if you look out in the world, not good clearly exists. So, because
like God would have to be good and evil.
Yeah, which, that at least from where we were, or like, ask any Christian, that doesn't make sense. But so what made me think of this was, and I don't want to pick on like this one person, but again, this is something that I saw a friend post on Facebook. But it was like a shared like post that's like been making the rounds. It's one of those. I mean, stop me if you heard this one before, but like a Christian student like totally owns this atheist professor in middle of class, that old trope kind of thing. Only the twist is apparently this time that, sorry, spoiler here, that apparently that student's name was Albert Einstein, but it totally wasn't. This is completely made up. But it's basically that trope of, okay, well, like the professor says, like, well, if God made everything and evil exists, then that means that God made evil, and therefore God is evil. Ha! Showed
Not
you
necessarily
like,
evil.
It's like
the source of evil, at least.
Yeah, it's like, sir, this is algebra. But
that's when the teacher goes, "Oh, okay." Sit down.
Yeah. Yep. It is. So, but apparently in this one, the theme of this one, like, was like this. So this incredibly smart student says, like, evil isn't really a thing. It's like, it's because, well, like, because like darkness isn't actually a thing. It's just an absence of light. And like cold isn't really a thing. It's just an absence of heat energy. And like, so by that same token, evil isn't really a thing. It's just an absence of God's love within a person. It's like, first of all, says who? Like, where are you even getting this definition? But then, and it just keeps going back to like, okay, but if God is love and made all of this stuff and completely permeates it, how can an absence of his love in anything like even be a possibility?
Yeah, it's nonsense, and I don't like to say that about things because
I do.
Because because people
but
overuse
you're
it.
Nicer than me, so
It's because people overuse it as like just a like dismissive, derisive thing. Like that's nonsense. That's garbage. But no, it's really a nothing statement.
Yeah. Which again, and this is my response to like pretty much any apologetic argument ever. It's like, okay, if that were true, that would explain it. And never mind that in this case, it actually wouldn't explain it. But again, okay, so how do you know that's actually true? It's like you missed that part.
Right. Now, if somebody is like, okay, that story gives me like that way of looking at things, that theology, it helps me have the healthiest view, whatever, then but they're like, I'm not going to treat it like fact. Then I'd be like, okay, I have no concern. I'm not concerned about your well-being going forward, but if somebody's like, this religion, this view, this story helps me deal with everything, and it's facts. That's when I'm like, no, you're hurting yourself, like, or you're building up hurt for yourself in the future. Might not hurt now, but like that's always how it starts with heroin.
Right. Yeah, but because the way I look at it is, again, like, to borrow a phrase from a book I haven't actually read. So this is being very like evangelical Christian-y biblically of me. It's like, I'll just take a phrase and like, no, that's not what they actually meant, but here's what it really means. So Christopher Hitchens had his book.
Said the person saying the whitest thing ever.
Right. So Christopher Hitchens' like infamous book, God is Not Great, with the subtitle How Religion Poisons Everything.
That's a great book.
And again, so I don't know if this is what he meant, and I may have to read it someday, but again, like, I've heard him talk about it a lot.
The audiobook is better. Do that.
Oh, did he read it, or was it something? Oh, okay. If he read it, then okay.
Actually, I don't know. But really, the SAS translates better with tone of voice.
Oh, for sure. That I always prefer audiobooks that are read by the author, if they can make that happen. Now, one book of his that I did listen to the audiobook, it would have been really hard for him to read it because it was one that was published after he died. It was his book, Mortality. It was really just like collection of writings that he had, like, about death and thinking about death. And like, there was one phrase in there. It was part of like towards the end, like, because most of it was like either like complete essays or things that he wrote. But then like the last part of the book is like they just like gathered like just a collection of different like notes or different like things he'd scribbled down kind of related to it. There's one thing he said, because this is something that I like to go back to, like going back to like, when I had cancer and everyone was telling me like just how brave I was being. But it's like, I'm literally just doing all that I know how to do through all this. And I can't remember the exact phrasing.
I was just noticing the overlap.
Yeah.
Just like
it's
Jesus
there.
Was really kind of human. Yeah. Like, what's he not going to do? Like, what was he going to do? Not carry the cross? Not get on the cross when he's being forced to? I don't know.
Yeah, true. But yeah, but like what Hitchens said, like, because he talked about that idea, like, because people know, like, he died of cancer as well. For him, it was a bit of an ordeal. So, like, while he was in the midst of it, and he's talking about the idea of, like, people telling him that he's, like, so brave. He's like, calling someone brave. I mean, save that for a battle they can actually win. It's like this isn't bravery. This is just, yeah, it was.
That's like, look how committed they are to their ideals.
Yeah. But anyway, where were we? Oh yeah. So this concept of, like, how can evil even be a thing to try to explain? Like, if you're telling us that, like, God is this, like, omnipotent, omnipresent, meaning, okay, if God is omnipresent, then he is everywhere, then that means his love is everywhere. And then how can evil exist in the presence of his being and his love? Like, just makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, God would have to be both good and evil, which then would make, like, good and evil, like, objective good and evil, not a thing.
Yeah. Which again goes back to Isaiah, which literally has God saying, "I create evil." So I mean, that kind of solves that. But yeah,
is monotheism self-defeating? Like,
in that sense, I guess.
For God to be everything, God has to also be nothing. So you're like, some multiple gods. All right.
I mean, I'm no cold case detective.
We have a guy who does that, right? If with paganism, and like, oh, there's a gal who does that, a guy who does that, and so it's kind of like rock paper scissors. You know what I mean? No one dominates, but then when you get to monotheism, now it's just like, I don't know, rock beats everything. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then it would have to beat itself too. Just beat it.
I beat myself all the time. What? But here's the thing, Matt. I mean, as atheists, can we even talk about evil? I mean, do we even have any justification?
No.
For
no, depending what argument you're looking at it from.
Yeah, because that's one of my favorite. So speaking of the videos that you sent me earlier, we mentioned the one by John Lennox or Lenouge or whatever the fuck we decided his name. We decided his name is. Yeah, I like that.
Or
so basically, so that video, it was like a good 15 minutes, but essentially all his argument boiled down to was, well, as an atheist, you don't really have any kind of standard for what evil can be, so you can't really tell us that it's a problem.
It's like, so what is this nonsense word you're using, evil, Mr. Atheist?
Yeah, but it's like,
isn't that kind of like, I know you are, but what am I? Like, isn't that what he just did?
Yeah, so it's basically, that's him like kind of tacitly admitting that, or at least I think you would be justified in taking it this way. It's like him saying, well, I don't actually have an answer, but I've decided that you can't ask.
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
It's absurd. You have a question.
Okay, but here's the thing. In a way, he's like correct. Like, at least depending on what brand of atheism you are and what your views on morality. So I know for me personally, it's like, no, I don't believe there is such a thing as ultimate morality or a true good and evil. These are just completely, they're just constructs that we've come up with to try to make sense and how we label things. But dude, it's so people Christians like to ask well, what by what standard are you calling this evil? And I say, or to say, well, by what standard are you saying that these things that God does or allows are evil? And my answer is, God's standard. This, it's called an internal critique, dude. It's which that means I'm just going to say,
I'm asking you how you solve your problem.
Right. So you're saying,
saying I have a problem, solve it for me.
Yeah, it's like they'll say, like, well, for the atheist, there is no evil for even there to be a problem. It's like, yes, correct. So that's why I'm asking you. You're the one that's telling me that evil is a real thing. I'm asking you for your answer to it. And your answer is, you can't ask me.
Yeah, he's like, his answer is, but what are you even saying? And you're like, do you know you keep owning yourself?
Yeah, so the internal critique is basically saying, okay, let's just say for the sake of argument, there is morality and God gave it to us and it's in the Bible. Based on that.
But no, Tommy, you don't believe that's true. So why can you base an argument on the idea that other people believe that?
No, but here's the thing. I'm not making an argument. I'm asking for yours. Like, how the fuck do you explain that?
Right, Tommy, but if you weren't asking me this, confronting question, there wouldn't be an argument. So
I like how we totally didn't plan for this to be like a role-playing thing, but we just both kind of went with it and it's working beautifully. I love us. But yeah, that response just fries my pickles.
With lots of weed. Well,
now if only that actually worked on me. One of these days.
It's like the lamest superpower you have.
Yeah. Emily and Chris, if you're watching, we need to make this happen. Or Richard, I don't know if you're watching, but yeah. See, I have all these friends.
We gotta get you some Rick Simpson oil.
Oh yeah, the RSO. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like high octane.
Yeah, see, that's one of the many ways I consider myself blessed is like between Matt here and like Emily and Chris, my buddy Richard. Like, there are so many people in this world just like committed to one day actually getting me high, because I have tried.
Yeah, and
several times, but it's like has like no effect on me.
And that one night, that's when I found out I was lightweight.
Yeah, like literally, like now, admittedly, Matt had done a little pre-gaming.
Yes, I had.
But in this one night, like having like literally the same joint, I felt absolutely nothing, and Matt had to spend the night on my couch.
I was gonna say I had to spend 2 hours with my head hovering over a trash can because I was sure I was gonna puke.
But you were wrong.
I was wrong,
dummy. That's what drugs will do to you.
Yeah, I didn't realize how little I had exposed myself to. I'm just a lightweight in general. I should have known, like just with even like Ritalin, like for ADHD, like 5 milligrams, I'm good. The doctors are like, really? You almost weigh 200 pounds. Like, we only give kids 5 milligrams.
Oh, I also have to add to the list, apparently, my younger brother, Andy, as well. Because I remember one time I was hanging out with him, my sister, and her husband. And, like, we were at Mother Stewart's microbrewery in my hometown of Springfield, which is funny because it's called Mother Stewart's, which, my last name is Stewart. And it's funny because my mom is completely against drinking at all. So I always love like if I have like go to there and like I'll come back to like my parents' house and tell them, I'm like, oh hey mom, I had your stout today. It was solid, good job. And she just looks at me like, and it makes me laugh. But anyway, so we were hanging out there and I was just talking about this whole concept. It's like, yeah, I've tried, but I just for whatever reason just cannot get high. Like I feel nothing. They just without saying a word, like my brother Andy just out of his pocket pulls his like vape device and just slams it on the table. It's like, doesn't say anything. It's like, all right. So I guess the strain he had in it was called Hammer of God, which it sounds like if anything was going to work on me, but maybe like me being an atheist, maybe that kind of neutralizes it. Maybe I just don't have enough faith for that weed to work. Maybe that's the problem.
So I got to step in and say, from what I know, the Hammer of God thing, was it a strain or was it an HHP?
Yeah, I asked him recently because I have seen it also is the name of a actual device, but I asked him like that. He said no, that was the name of the strain.
Because last time I checked, I couldn't find it on Leafly, which has like all the official strains. So that's I kind of wonder if that's like a regional thing somebody developed where they crossbred some stuff.
Or maybe that's someone's like proprietary mix of something. I don't know. But anyway, so I guess like, so maybe I'll like crowdsource this a little bit to the audience here. If there's anyone know, like,
what?
You can't feel the high in the same way. You can't.
Now, okay, Tommy swears
I done owned myself. Yeah.
So Tommy at the Meshuggah show, like you had like half of a pretty strong gummy, and and you said you weren't feeling anything, but you were like slow head banging like in a crowd.
Well, but that's the thing. That's how I always am at shows like that.
Okay, but see, I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, I've had people who know me in real life, and then they like see me at a show, and they're like, "You were just a completely different person just now." I'm like, "Yeah, it's music, man. I don't know."
Yeah, but that 19-year-old like to our left, she was looking at you like you were twerking, and she kind of looked like she might have been a good Christian girl, like coming to this show, or I don't know, whatever. But like. I was really intrigued by the look on her face, because it was kind of like she was intrigued, a little disgusted, but also couldn't turn away.
Well, I mean, they were playing Perpetual, for people who know Meshuggah, they were playing Perpetual Black second, and I just had to headbang the floor. So hopefully somebody understands. So, I mean, that song is my jam. But
no, it made sense. And it looked like you were making it make sense for her, right? And she's like, I don't get it, but I do.
Yeah. I mean, you also got to remember, like, the year I was coming off of. Yeah. That show was therapeutic for me. So, anyway.
Excellent use of blacklight paint.
Yes. We need to see them again. I want to be drowned in sound again.
Yeah, it's a baptism in musical noise.
Yeah, but if you weren't hearing it, if you were just to look at them up on stage, they were just like the chillest dudes, just like.
Which makes it even more badass because it's like a Super Saiyan moment, like where like Goku is powering up, right, and he's. But like he's standing still, just going raw. That's how it was.
Yeah, like they're just like, just the chillest dudes, just like completely pulverizing the entire crowd. And it's like, oh, yeah. Yep. So yeah, go see Meshuggah, kids. It'll
just
do you good.
Thinking about it, I feel a little higher.
Yeah. So if anyone out there has any suggestions, like, so I'll let you know at least what I remember I've tried so far. So there was the Hammer of God. I've tried garlic cookie.
Garlic cookie?
Yeah. And it tasted kind of like that.
Weird.
Pineapple Express. And so do you remember what that was, like the night where you were talking about where you had like too much? Do you remember what strain that was? Or Emily and Chris, if you're in the chat, if you want to. I don't know if they're watching tonight or not, but
I think it was berry something.
I
think it was a hybrid berry something or other.
Yeah, but anyway, so if anyone has any recommendations of things I should try, I've tried edibles. I've had vape, joints. Yeah. One of these days.
We just need to. I don't know. We need to get. All right, I have a cousin, so
yay!
I think I can.
So do I.
I think I can put this conundrum to him. He has his card. He's within his legal limit of 10 plants. It hasn't been legal for the 20 years he's been doing it. Also, I think he just like happened to have 10 plants when it became legal. And so he's like, "Oh,
good.
That's good."
See, this was clearly designed. God had his hand in this. I mean, you can't explain that.
But I think he could probably make it happen.
Yeah. All right. So
I've got these gummies that are they should be all right. They don't have a listed dosage on it.
All right, so I'm just taking a second here to consult the description that I typed up for the show to see was there anything else we were going to talk about.
Oh, the problem evil. Yeah.
But oh yeah, so the part that like when as we were approaching this evening, like as we were like discussing with each other like what we want to talk about. So there were some things that you brought up, which initially. Like I was confused. I was like, I didn't quite see how this connected, but you made sense, at least in a way. So how would you describe it? Like this, it's almost like Christians kind of need evil to be a thing. Like, would you say, or I'll just let you explain what you were thinking instead of me trying to explain what you were thinking.
It's almost like I think people are just there's too much going on in my brain.
Yeah. Well, while you're briefly paused, I will say like soon, if anyone's interested, I'll probably throw the link out for anyone who wants to like join in. So if you want to join in, like talk with us, like, hang out, sit tight, but I want to make sure Matt gets through this before we bring in other thoughts and stuff. But yeah, go.
So it seems like we just do notice bad things more easily than good things. So it seems like we noticed there were terrible things in the world in our development, like sooner than we had a concept of good. Like we probably had a concept of bad before we had a concept of good.
Right. Yeah. And keep talking. I'm just going to refill. Be right back.
Okay. So what was I saying? So I feel like in our development, humanity started to notice evil, like things that were definitely bad, and like the bad things had to go away. So so they didn't want to go away. So maybe like are they good? Like what's the opposite of bad? Is it good? And am I good? Because if I'm not good, then people should just like off me, and so if there's like big evils in the world, the prospect of there just being big evil and there isn't a big good, maybe that was too much for our brains to handle.
Yeah,
like life is suffering or not suffering. And I would say people like seek to avoid the suffering way more than they tend to like move towards good. Maybe that's like true spirituality is saying like, I want to pursue good instead of putting like a story around it or a theology. I don't know. I kind of talked myself into a cul-de-sac in my brain.
Oh, I live on a cul-de-sac, so it's not all bad.
But your neighborhood was built before they were cool. Like in the 40s, 50s.
Yeah, I think my house was built in 50. Yeah.
Yeah, cul-de-sacs were a rare thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, so once you see things as good or once you see things as either good or bad, then you need the other category. This whole good or bad thing, there's the whole like God, not a God thing. Like, does it? I kind of wonder if it all comes from thinking that there is such a thing as good or evil, an objective thing. I'm not saying we should let evil happen as humans see it.
Yeah.
Like, definitely we should stop the things that the majority of us see as evil.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, Yeah, I guess it's maybe like it kind of connects to that idea. Okay, well, as atheists, or really just like anyone who, for whatever reason, like doesn't believe in like gods, or even if you do believe in like some deity or supernatural thing of some point, you still don't necessarily attach any like ultimate sense of morality with it. Or so, but so then they say, well, then why can you call things good or bad? And it's like, well, again, that goes back to like, well, those concepts are just things that we came up with to describe, reality as we observe it. Like, whatever you want to call it, there are things that happen that people would really prefer wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, whether it is just evolution, and our survival instinct or whatever. So for whatever reason, the organisms that have these specific preferences and aversions means that they survive. That's really all it is. And then
so that must be good.
Yeah. So basically we have these sensations that we call liking things.
Mm-hmm.
And we call that good. And we have these sensations that we call not liking things.
Now we're an atheist church.
Yeah. Shit. I never wanted to start one of these, but now well. But like, so that's why, and this is a concept I want to look into more, because on the surface it sounds appealing, but again, I don't really know much about it. But this concept.
Sorry, I don't know why when you said those last two sentences, I thought polygamy, and then the second sentence you said made it even funnier. I don't know much about it, but it seems like
I'm going to have to go back and watch that and with that in mind. But because when I think about like different concepts of morality and moral philosophies, one that I've heard that I'm really intrigued by that I think might describe where I'm at is emotivism. Are you familiar with that one?
No, but
it's
like
one I learned from.
Spelled.
Yeah, emotivism. It kind of sounds like emoji. It's how I feel about emojis. Some are definitely evil, but I heard it from Alex O'Connor, like formerly known as Cosmic Skeptic on the YouTubes. Brilliant
O'Connor
guy.
Boy. Yeah.
But yeah, he says it's basically our sense of morality is really just an emotional response or reaction. So he uses the example, basically us saying murder is wrong.
Yep.
Is basically the equivalent of just saying boo murder.
Uh-huh.
It's like our emotional reaction. Like we react negatively to it, so we've assigned this label of wrong.
It's the kind of biggest boo.
Yeah. Yeah, or boo stealing or rape or whatever.
Or boo conditions pending. Like
but then obviously on the other side, things that we view as good or morally right, we say like, oh, like yay love or yay generosity or whatever.
Yeah, there's a reason why we started programming like computers and stuff with ones and zeros. Yays and nays.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, maybe it's like because it's still the last comment. Like this still just cracks me up. That might be my favorite comment of the evening. Thanks, Vince.
What were we just saying? I had a thought.
Like emotivism, like yay, love, yay.
Oh, yeah, like the ones and zeros thing. Like
binary.
Are people just meat androids? I mean, like the good, bad, like on off. Like there really does seem to be like we are the androids that nature makes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like for whatever reason, humans, I mean, go fig, seem to think that there is something special about being human.
Yeah, but peanut butter thinks the same thing.
I'm sure it does. I mean, I love my peanut butter. It's certainly something special, but
there's just layers to the morality, man.
Mm-hmm. It's like there's layers to my peanut butter sandwich.
Peanut butter on peanut butter crime.
Ooh, I'm down for that. I really love peanut butter, by the way, folks. But But yeah, where were we before we?
Emotivism.
Yeah. See,
where we think
peanut butter actually is actually special. That's. I mean, he's a theologian, folks. So
we have a peanut butter right now that is very good.
Bitch.
I can't remember the name of it. It's a Whole Foods.
See, I actually have like grown to love the just the store brand where it's like Kroger or Meyer. Like I actually prefer those over like the Jifs or the Skippies or the whatevers.
Now, have you had a honey peanut butter?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, honey peanut butter is where it's at.
Now, I still prefer just having actual peanut butter and just mixing actual honey, but yeah, the honey peanut butter is good stuff. But
okay.
But how
nobody steal this idea? But I want to make a peanut butter that's like not sweetened with sugar. It's sweetened with jelly. It's just a mix.
But that is sugar.
Right. So it's like strawberry jam sweetened peanut butter. Just fuck your peanut butter and jelly. Bro.
The two shall become one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was like an insult, and then it turned into how it's made.
Oh, my jelly fucked your peanut butter. Hey, as long as it was consensual.
Wait, no. Okay.
Like, can jelly give consent?
It's a little product line, okay? Like you have one version where it's jelly fuck the peanut butter, so it's a little bit more jelly than peanut butter, and then the other one, it's the peanut butter fuck the jelly, right? And so that's a little peanut butter heavy.
No,
and that's what it says on the label.
No, Vince says, don't they have that already? Yes, I know what you're talking about. Like it's that like goober
that's
grape
like a
or
swirl.
whatever.
Yeah,
it's like they haven't completely fucked. Like
right.
they're still just on like second or third base.
Right, they got that Amish or Mormon sheet with the hole between them.
I don't think you're ready for this jelly.
That's what should be on the label though of the peanut like. It should be like the peanut butter done fucked the jelly on one of them, and on the other one it's like the jelly done fucked the peanut butter.
Yeah, it's like you got chocolate on my peanut butter. You got peanut butter on my chocolate. It's like it's like so there's the new existential question of our time. Like who fucked first, the peanut butter or the jelly, or who came first? Is jelly really just peanut butter cum? The jam. Yes.
That's the jam.
That's my jam. So, but I mean, really, like, how can you even say that peanut butter fucking jelly is good, Matt? You have no basis for calling anything good.
You're right. It could be evil, but it's tasty.
Man.
My brain went somewhere sci-fi for a second.
All right. Well, if it's all right with you, Matt, I mean, let me know if it's not, and that's totally cool because I guess this is your show too. But I'm fine at this point. I mean, I feel like we still got stuff to talk about, but if we want to see if there's anyone else out there who wanted to maybe join in, and
yes.
All right. So I will put a link in the comments here. So if anyone watching wants to click on that, join the discussion. If you feel like being part of this madness, and if you're having an emotivous reaction to our conversation saying, yay, the humanity, and you just want to, like, I want to be a part of it. Or if you want to let us know how you're booing us, I mean, that's cool too. That's how we roll. So
that's what Tommy's insides are doing.
They're doing all the things with the
little
stuff.
bit of the inside on the outside.
My insides are doing the things with this stuff for the people. So
I had real skyline last night.
What? But okay.
No, I haven't been eating beef, and because it upsets my stomach, I found out, and
right,
and so,
ooh,
yeah.
and
Last night I had real skyline at my house, and I was super happy, and it was doing lots of good things inside, lots of noisy things.
All right, so it looks like we do have a Vincent. We do not have visual on the Vincent. Oh, there he is.
There's a visual.
Vincent, how's it going, man? Now, unfortunately, I cannot hear you.
Me neither.
Yeah. But you look great. And he does have a green screen behind him, so if anyone wants to like take this and like put him in a scene, I would love to see that. But because from what I know of Vincent, he does some video production.
I do. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So yeah, I do have a green screen behind me, so that should be fun. And I do some video production from time to time.
Yeah, I hear maybe even award winning, as I hear.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Derek likes to gas me up, so
he's good for that. He's good for that. Yeah.
But I have won some awards at a time or two.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But it's interesting what you guys are talking about, the whole like the specter of the problem of evil, right? And my perspective on it is really simple. It's like if you really read, the early scriptural accounts of anything that's going on, but you take Genesis, for example, you have a lot of examples in the early parts of the text that are basically anachronisms, right? Where you have Lot's wife being turned into a pillar of salt and leaving, one of the cities of the plain that just so happens to be along the Dead Sea, where if you've been to the Dead Sea, which I have, there are many different rock formations or what have you that are made of salt because
they look like pillars. Yeah.
They look like, plausibly like a person if, you're in the right light, if it's sunrise or sunset or whatever's going on.
Yeah. If you had the right strain. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that too. If you had the hammer of God. Yeah.
Unless you're me, apparently.
And so it's like, it's important when we're reading, and we were talking about this on Derek's show the other day, Tommy, right? It's like, it's important to remember the context of what you're reading, right? And so when you're talking about that first part of Genesis, right, it's pretty clear that there's, from the way it's written, that there's two different tellings happening because of the way it's sort of right. But if you look in other places, in Egypt, in Mesopotamia, even in other Jewish sources, Midrashic sources, or things like the Babylonian Talmud and things of this nature, it's pretty clear that some, not all, but that some of these sort of ideas in these stories are borrowings from other cultures, but then but then as the Jewish people sojourn in Egypt or Babylon or Syria or wherever, they add those. They're kind of like the Borg, right? We'll add your distinct to our own, right? And that's just what all cultures do. I mean, you could find that in Native American mythology or Mesoamerican in Asia. This is just what cultures do as trade happens.
Yeah, that's one thing like that will kind of bug me about some people in like the atheist community. Like they'll look at things like that in the Bible where they're like, taking influence from other cultures, but they'll like totally turn it into like pejorative, like, oh, they're stealing or they're plagiarizing. Like this is why it's bullshit. It's like, no, that's just kind of what you did. Like, and people still do it now.
We were talking about that the other day, right? And is that's just the way humans work, right? It's always has been and always will be. Somebody else has a really great idea and they're telling you about it, and without even really meaning to, you just incorporate it, right? And then you take a whole society and have them be, held captive in another people's land for 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 years, whatever, they're going to incorporate these stories, whether they mean to or not, right? So we see that with like the Noah story. We see that in Genesis. We see that in a lot of these early places, right? In the text, and so when we're talking about the ideas of good versus evil or whatever, Christian doctrine is an interesting thing, right? Because in some ways, and you do learn this in seminary, the New Testament is a commentary on the Old, right? Is you have the advent of Jesus, whether he existed or not. I think for this conversation, it's immaterial, right? Is this idea of anytime you have a text, anytime you have a religious text, or even a philosophical text, it's a capturing of a group of people at a specific place in a specific moment in time. That is, and so what it really is a time capsule into what they were thinking, how they were believing, and what was going on in their society at that moment, right? And so when you start thinking about these things, it can be pretty interesting because you get a sense of how we've changed as a species and maybe how we haven't, right?
Yeah.
So it can be pretty interesting. But with early Genesis or any text, really, this is what they were thinking about at that time, right? And especially proto-Judaism, but even in today's version of Judaism, the idea of original sin is not a thing. It's just not a thing in their system. It is a distinctly and uniquely Christian idea, right? That this idea that Adam and Eve did a bad thing, right? In a very Chris Isaac sort of way. I did a bad thing, right? But like they did the bad thing, and then now God has to punish them, and then that is imputed to everybody else that comes after that.
Because free will, what the hell?
Well, right,
right. Don't we have we shouldn't each have a choice to accept?
Sure.
That to eat the tree or not,
but Jewish people don't believe that, right? And so they believe that a child is born relatively pure and has the ability to choose to do the good things or the bad things, right? And
makes sense.
And when they discuss talk of sin or whatever, or being apart from God, it's much more like, yes, this is a commandment of God, and you should want to do it because if God is your beloved, you want to do things for the people you love, right? Like Tommy, you were talking about being a dad. I'm a dad. Like you want to do things for your kids because you love them and like whatever.
That's a dad.
Right, exactly. And so it's the same kind of thought. That's the thought process in Judaism, right? Christianity is very different, right? And people, but there is this dichotomy, regardless of the fact that the evangelical and modern church tries to pretend like there's not, but there is this dichotomy between clergy and laity, or people who are biblically and ecumenically educated and people who are not, right?
Yeah, kind of hierarchy.
There is a dichotomy in the text where it literally says if you're quote called to leadership, you're going to be judged at a higher standard, right?
Right.
But people who are not, who are just like your everyday people who are just going to church or whatever, right? And so the text does suggest that there's this dichotomy, right? And the New Testament and Christianity as a whole there is a dichotomy, but the modern church has sort of shied away from that and tried to all the seeker friendly stuff and has tried to pretend like God's no respecter of persons, we're all the same, while still enforcing the hierarchy. Right?
Absolutely.
It's like don't talk to the pastor before church on Sunday, right? And so in some ways the idea of evil is, in some ways, I think some of the ways you guys were coming at it was just not correct, but not because you're wrong, but just because it presupposes the Christian God, right?
Right.
And the reality is, I mean, whatever you believe is like whatever, it's fine. But it is that in any system, like all of these religions to one degree or another are self-contained closed systems, right? And all of them, whether we're talking about Christianity, whether we're talking about Judaism, whether we're talking about Hinduism, any of Norse mythology, Greek mythology, any of it, there is a point in the indeterminate past where people were looking around and going, I wonder how that got there, or I wonder why that happens, right?
Yeah.
And we did not possess the scientific vocabulary at that point of human societal development to be able to say, oh, that's because of gravity, right? Or that's because of convection and hot air rises and cool air, comes down, comes down. And so it creates a cyclonic convection. And that's why we get these huge, big thunderstorms or tornadoes or like whatever. Right. We just didn't possess the scientific vocabulary 30,000 years ago or whatever to articulate that. And so it's not surprising that you have Thor as a thunder god, right? Zeus is a thunder god. Most people would say Baal, but it's actually pronounced Baal. So Baal is also a thunder god. There's also a fertility god because clearly homie just likes to fuck shit up, right? But but
more ways than one. Yeah,
you have all of these pantheons where you have a singular god occupying multiple offices, right? And so even if you just take the Bible as a unit, right, you can see in the text, if you do if you have someone who is skilled at textual analysis or whatever, how the idea of God in the Bible starts off very tribal. It's very much angry tribal deity. My people are enslaved or whatever. I'm gonna fuck shit up, right? And then
so they can be my slaves now. Yeah,
exactly. But over the course of time, that mellows out, right? And then eventually you see the Bible being the text of the Bible being written, but they're not the only texts that are written, right? There are other, midrashic texts. There's a whole genre of quasi biblical writing called rewritten Bible, right? Which happens in the intertestamental period, where you have Jewish writers writing a text in the voice of a given person, usually someone like Moses or Isaiah or someone, and ascribing that name to that text, because there's a stream of thought from the ancient world that if I write this text and ascribe it to this great person, say Hercules, that gives the text more weight and more meaning, right? These things are happening all of the time now, and we know some of these texts we have, some of them we don't, right? Some of them are lost to the sands of time, at least for the moment, right? These things are all happening all of the time, in the ancient world, and what we see is just a small snippet, a small capturing of what survived, right? And so when you talk about these religions and the development and all these kind of things, it's you see gods or these gods developing over the course of time, and it's not. And I think that the Christian narrative presupposes that is the only thing, right? And Christians will tell you this, that our God's the only true God and like whatever, but most of them have never had a chance or have a desire to learn any of that, right? And so I think that the idea of good and evil has arisen in every society at every time period. So I mean, I think a better question is, to go to atheist church, as you guys were saying, is not how do you deal with the problem of evil, because it's not really a problem, right? It's only a problem if you hold that the Bible is true. Right. If you go, oh, it's a book. You go, oh, it's a collection of writings. Maybe it's useful. Maybe it's not. Then it doesn't matter. But I think what a better question is why evil, right? In a very why Gomorrah sort of sense. Why is Gomorrah? Because we have these ideas of the things that we consider evil, right? Most people would consider evil, right? Most people, regardless of your religious persuasion, would consider murder evil, right? Most people would consider rape evil. Most people would consider child abuse evil. These things are not unique to one society or another. We find them across the thing, just across the whole gamut of human society, across
right.
And so it's like, I think a better question is, instead of how do we deal with the problem of evil, is let them have their death call. Like, let them have it. Like, eventually they drink some Kool-Aid and it goes away, right? And is that why is this not unique? Why does this develop across time and across society? I would submit that the things that we believe are evil, or that the development of evil is because, Steve ate those berries last week and Steve died. Those berries are evil.
Right.
It is, and it sounds
like, thanks, Steve.
But it sounds funny, right? But at a time when we were fully hunter-gatherers, there needed to be a process by which we say, as a group, we are not going to do whatever that thing is because Steve died doing that thing, and there's only like 40 of us in this tribe, right? And so we can't do that, right? And I would submit that that's most probably where the idea of evil I watch with my eyes closed. That's hilarious, Matt. No, but I mean, and so that I mean, in my opinion, that's where it comes from. But I mean, I think we have to be careful when we're reading texts to not read ourselves into the text, right?
Yeah, of course.
And the things that we already think. There's a word for it. So in biblical, writing and study and interpretation, or you're writing a sermon, you have to properly exegete the text. It's called exegesis, right?
Right. Yeah, and most people think they're exegeting when they're really eisegeting.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And what happens is when you read Genesis and you read in everything you've been taught because you grew up going to a good regular normal Baptist church, right?
Regular Baptist. Yeah, my official.
You read in everything, you eisegete what you've been taught into the text. And I think when you talk about the problem of good and evil, that's what happens, is because you get Ray Comfort, the ginormous toolbox that he is, and
just the whole box. Yeah.
And he will invariably track down some vulnerable person on the street, right? It always invariably is like some like teenager, early 20s girl or young woman or something who you can see maybe has some vulnerability issues going on. It's written all over her face. And he's going, well, what if I told you that, like, what if I could prove God exists to you, and then proceeds to just flail about violently, suggesting that, I saw a video the other day.
He probably thought he had a chance with her, and
Well, right, exactly. I saw this video the other day where they had put some soft music under it. It was a whole friggin' thing, and where he was talking to this young woman, and he asked her if she believed in God, and she was like, "Well, no, I don't." And she's like, "Well, why?" He's like, "Well, there's no proof." Right, is basically what she said. She's like, "Well, what if I could absolutely prove to you scientifically that God exists? Would you be interested in hearing that?" And she was like, "Yeah, I guess, sure," but but it kind of felt to me like in a I gotta hear this shit kind of way, right? Yeah. And so he proceeded to go on about how if you have a painting, or a sculpture, then that is, quote, scientific proof that the painter or the sculptor exists.
Sure.
Which it absolutely is, right? But
because we've seen that those things exist. Yeah.
Well, right, exactly. And he begins to go on this diatribe, listing off all of these just very ad hoc examples of how all of these, the fact that these things exist is proof that whomever the person or the artist or whatever that created it must exist, right? Which, I mean, scientists and philosophers and people with, letters after their name have proven that that's in fact not the case over and over again, right? You don't know how that painting got there, right? Could have been aliens. could have materialized from the Star Trek transporter. We just don't know. Yeah. But then he went out.
It could have been a cat walking across the canvas. Yeah.
Well, right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. To suggest that because we're all here at the planets, at the universe, and the stars, and the whole thing, that is empirical scientific proof that there is a creator, and it's. I mean, Ray Comfort. Yeah. I mean, and the whole sort of organization that is sort of evolved around him, right?
Yeah,
is he's the progenitor of Kirk Cameron's craziness. I don't know if either of you guys remember back at a time when they were
absolutely,
like the whole like the way of the master, like the living water stuff. Yeah,
no, I mean, and I don't know if you would remember this, but do you remember the football player Reggie White?
I do, yeah.
Okay. So the people used to call him the Minister of Defense, right? Mm-hmm. Because he was obviously one of the greatest defensive football players that's ever existed, right? But he was also very, very devoutly Christian.
Yeah. Right? Was he actually a pastor at some point? Or?
He was. Yeah. And at one point, and this was when he played for Green Bay in the mid-'90s, like when Brett Favre was playing there, right? And he decided at one point, he was really taking his faith seriously, and he decided at one point that he wanted to learn Hebrew, right? Which, if you are an inquisitive, analytical person, it is from firsthand experience, I can tell you, is an absolute natural progression, right? You're reading your Bible, you're going to church every Sunday, you want to know more about this, let me learn how to read the language that this book is actually written in, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So anyway, he got vilified in the church at the time. Because back then the idea that you could be a scholar and a Christian was like mind blowing. You know, it's like that Chris Pratt, that's Chris Pratt, meme. It's because they back then, especially if you went to like an evangelical church, the idea that you could do serious scholarship and also be a Christian was like that's not possible. Right? In like those kind of,
I can see that. Yeah.
So he got vilified for it because people, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, are you Jewish now?" and all this kind of thing. And so there's definitely this kind of thought process.
I love that insult.
Right? Exactly.
Are you Jewish now? It's like,
what are you? The bad things now?
Right. Well, I mean, because it's interesting because when you really study the history of Christianity, right? When you really get into the nitty-gritty of it, like there is this idea in a lot of sectors in Christianity that there was once upon a time in a magical land far away that there was like this golden age of Jesus where there was like one right way to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And like that first generation of the church. And the more you read and the more you study about these things, you realize that those motherfuckers hated each other.
Oh, right?
Yeah. It's like
you had the conflict between like Peter and Paul.
Oh yeah, that was.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is like how all the Christians will say like, okay, the closer to Jesus we can get, the closer to the truth we can get. But when it came to that conflict, okay, you had the conflict between Peter, the guy who was like literally with Jesus, like knew him face to face, and then the guy Paul, who like I saw him in a vision that I swear was real, and we went with Paul.
Right. Well, right, but what people don't realize is that it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons that Paul becomes preeminent, right, is because Paul was amongst the Jews in Greece, and so he was preaching and ministering and writing, there at the time, and he was bringing, back money to the church in Jerusalem for various things. And so then like now follow the money, right? I mean that
right.
That's the reality. But I also think the other side of it is like our good friend Simon was saying the other day, people really undervalue how important 70 AD is in the development of all of this, right? Because Paul was ministering to, your mileage may vary. Some people are going to say Jewish people, in the diaspora. Other people are going to say Gentiles. I mean, I don't think it matters personally, but so he's ministering there. He's already ministering in a very asynchronous, disconnected way, right? Whereas you got Peter, who's really advocating for this Christianity, or what would become Christianity, is just another type way to be Jewish, right?
And right. Yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, I mean, Jesus, like you think about Jesus as the Messiah, well, it's the Jewish Messiah.
Right.
So yeah, it makes sense that it's just
exactly
an extension of that.
At that time, pretty much everybody in Israel and the surrounds really believed that it was just meant to be a sort of an exposition of what it means to be Jewish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of in the way that like Messianic Jews are sort of Christian, but it's really just an expansion of Judaism. But then, like I was saying in the chat before, when the temple gets destroyed, that changes everything, right? Because now you go from a system of faith and belief that is been operating basically the same for several thousand years, right? You have you have the tabernacle, then the first temple, then the second temple, but by and large, it's operating the same, century after century. Then all of a sudden there is no temple. Israel doesn't really exist in any meaningful way as a country anymore, or as a place really. And the Jewish people are scattered to the wind, right? And so so they have to recoalesce around their family groups and around the text, right? And I think the same thing happened. I think a very similar thing happens for the early church, where the main church was in Jerusalem, kind of like the way the Vatican is now, right? Or has been forever, right? Is where like that's like the headquarters of Jesus, right? But in that first generation of the church, the Super Friends headquarters was in Jerusalem, right? And when that gets destroyed and everything just gets scattered, it sort of changes the way everything has to operate. And I think that's, one of the reasons why they ended up settling on Paul, right? Also, we just have more of his letters than we have of other people's, right?
And I mean, and you got to admit, like his story is a little sexier. It's like, okay, he was like persecuting Christians, and all of a sudden he wasn't. Like, what's that all about? I mean, that's
100%. No, exactly. It is. Yeah, there's a marketability to it to a certain degree.
Paul was also a marketing guy. Like he's really selling it.
Right. I mean, so I think that what happens when we're talking about this good and evil thing, right, is that most people who would articulate that they are a Christian don't have the first flipping clue what that means. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like they just, they read the stuff that they read the stuff that they're told to read, essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how it goes. Yeah.
Who's this Wesley character? None of us.
I don't know. I'm like, now. This may or may not be a good idea, but
technically that's Russia. But I digress.
Yeah, I mean he's here.
Why not? Let's
see how long this goes. Like, hello, Wesley. How are you, sir? I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
I also need to go in a few minutes to spend time with my son.
Yeah. That's all right. I mean, if the other two are fine hanging out for a little bit,
I can hang out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry, Wesley, we still can't hear you, man.
Are you muted?
Yeah. I mean, it's not muted on my end, so it must be.
I wonder if because this happened with Vincent. I wonder if it like auto mutes people.
No, that was on my end.
Oh, okay.
Mine was on my end.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, man. Still can't hear you, but
I'm curious. I'm curious to hear what he has to say after the lively chat messages he was sending.
Yeah, I mean, talking about like Gog and Magog and about Book of Revelation, and like none of you. I mean, so he says none of us are Christian. And like, accurate.
True story.
Yes. Like, I'm not Christian. I know Matt's not. Like Vincent,
No.
like, do you identify as Christian? Or?
I at this point, I think we talked about this the other day, Tommy, but I mostly identify as an agnostic. I was a very devout Christian for a really long time. But so if Jesus is God, what makes Jesus God more than say Thor or Hercules?
Yeah. So as Wesley, he's saying in like our private chat here, he says, "I am a Jew. Jesus is God." I don't know how those two sentences go together, but I'm curious, and I wish we could hear him so I could get his thoughts. But
I mean, it underscores what I think is a really interesting question, right? Which is why are the characters that appear in the Bible of more relevance than other pantheons, right? Because to pretend that there isn't a pantheon happening is not only silly, but it's just misinformed, right? Like the characters that we see in the Bible that appear as God or whatever, evolve out of earlier proto versions of the text, where you have we were talking. You guys talked about this before.
Sorry, Vincent said he's going to turn off and turn back on. See if
you mean Wesley?
Wesley.
Yeah, Wesley. Sorry. Yeah, Vincent's here. He's talking. Sorry.
Where I do that a lot. But no, where they evolve out of these proto versions of themselves, and you have, the God who would become Yahweh, right? Is part of a larger, pantheon of Pan-Phoenician and, what we would call Palestinian to today's world, gods, right? And so there were gods of the storm and gods of, gods of this and gods of that, and in the same way that in like Greece, where you'll have a god of this city and a god of that city and a god of this place and that place, the same thing happens there too, right? And,
right. Well, it looks like Wesley's back, so we'll give him another chance here, see if this works.
Are you hearing me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I am hearing you now, yes.
My name is Wesley Lawrence Curry the second. If you read the Bible in the King James Version in Leviticus, is the sacrifice of the second in the manner. And in the book of Zephaniah is the howling of the second. That's me. Hi, Wesley Lawrence Curry the second. I am in the Bible that way.
So
okay. All right.
Okay, Wesley.
All right. So have you been? I don't know how much of tonight's show have you caught? You got any thoughts on like what we were talking about or anything?
I was looking at another atheist show that I watch from time to time, and it's the first time the algorithm has put you into my YouTube space. So
cool.
Yeah, I'm in Huntington, West Virginia.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
That's not real far from where we are. I mean, it's like a state over, but
West Virginia. I will say, like, as far as like America goes, West Virginia is one of my favorite regional accents. So,
yeah, I think Ohio is the only state in the United States where they have no accent. In the state of Ohio, just north of here, they have really just no accent English.
We're pretty boring. Sorry.
The Columbus, Ohio accent is what they teach to newscasters to help them have a very generic American accent.
Yeah,
fair enough.
All right, Jesus returned, and nobody said anything about it.
That's quite a lead-in.
Yeah.
Okay. What? How did we get there? What? Like so. Is there anything specific here?
Years ago.
What's that?
22 years ago, January 4th, about 2 a.m. in Chicago, he said, "It is time." And right after Jesus, who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh, right after that, Satan, also known as Baal, said, "Sad and delicious."
That's fun. But I mean, that does sort of tease out an interesting thought process, whereas like there's been tons of scholarship on this, but where you have this progressive elevating of some deities and lowering of others, right? So like if you look in the book of Genesis, the snake is the devil, essentially, right?
It's a character reference. Yes, it very much is a
it
poetic
absolutely
way to describe somebody's character, a snake.
Well, right. But what you see happen over and over again in throughout human society is tribe A worships the alligator, a deity that is envisaged as an alligator. And then tribe B conquers tribe A, and tribe B worships a bunny or whatever. So the bunny's good and the alligator is bad when tribe B takes over the land, right? And that's what you see happen. That you can see the remnants of that in the Bible, because we know these things now based on archaeology and other things, is that one of the main deities in let's call it prehistoric Canaan or prehistoric Lebanon and Palestine was a snake deity. So when the Jewish tradition develops, they demonize that deity as to say, we've taken power now, right?
Allah is a dead frog head with 2 fangs on its throat and a barcode on its head. So, that's what people say, is they say Allah is God. He's an unclean spirit like a frog that doesn't have a dick or an ass. He doesn't even have arms or a heart. It's just a frog head. Allah is Darth Kermit.
Darth Kermit. So he's not Darth Jar Jar?
And Allah is
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about things that concern all flesh, not just imaginations between us. What happened to me? I got attacked by Satan. I really did. He said in my head, what happened is I was laying in bed and suddenly I was paralyzed, like gravity was too strong of a physical force for my muscles to move against.
Yeah, God did that to me once.
On October 10 in the year 2005, October 10, 2005, for just a few moments. And in those moments that I found myself unable to move, something felt like I was being electrocuted or a fire was put into me. And a voice spoke loudly in my head. And I knew it was not God. But it said these words: I will turn and toss you violently like a ball. And then whatever it was that I thought was holding me down, then I could sit up in bed again. It was really quick. It didn't last longer than a few moments.
Okay, and sorry, not to cut you off, but only Wesley, this is sounding like very interesting stuff, but just we've been going for over 3 hours. We were probably planning on maybe winding it down. So
that wasn't God. That wasn't deity. That was Satan.
Okay, so basically, what I'm asking, go ahead and spoil the end for me. Where are you taking us here?
I did what Jesus told you to do. I told the vision, and a pearl of light, the Jewish Elohim, the Holy Spirit, which is a pearl of great wealth in my belly, restored my filthy, dead, gray, supposedly baptized soul. My soul was not baptized when I saw it. I said I'm baptized. Oh yeah, I believe Jesus is God. It was not baptized. It was filthy.
I don't know how you baptize a soul anyway, but all right. So
I'm telling you.
So sorry to pull rank here, but this is. But okay, sorry. Just give you
a vision. He couldn't get into me on March.
Okay, sorry. I'm just muting you real quick. I'm just going to go ahead and pull rank because this is my show. So the topic that we're talking about tonight is the problem of evil. Is there anything you have to say about the problem of evil? Your story sounds interesting and I'd love to hear more of it. But like I said, we've been already going for over 3 hours now. So I don't know if we got time for all that. So if there's anything you would like to say specifically about how you explain the problem of evil, any of your answers for it, I'd love to hear it. So
that thing was the fire that Satan pulls down was evil. It was not.
Okay.
That was evil.
And so how does that exist at the same time? Now, do you believe in an all-loving, all-powerful God?
I not this all loving. Jesus can be terrible. There's some things he really hates. He loves and he forgives all men. But there's
if God is love, then he would have to be all loving.
Yeah, people leave out the parts where Jesus says he hates this and he hates that.
Who wants that?
Because if they told that, they wouldn't get money in their bowls at the end of the day of their charades.
All right, so what's that? Are you a Christian? Like, how do you identify? I guess as it were.
I am a Jew.
A Jew, that's right. Okay, but what did you say here? See, in our private chat, you said you are a Jew and Jesus is God.
Yes.
So
God.
So do you believe that Jesus just is like the prophesied Jewish Messiah?
Yes.
Okay. So do you also consider yourself Christian, or is that like a completely different thing to you?
For this, if you are not Jewish, you will not understand what I'm going to say right now, and it will sound wackadoodle to you.
I'm looking forward to it.
And you're watching this. There is a Jewish secret about a man of the earth who comes to bring peace to all the world, and he will be known in these 3 ways. He will meet Noah and give him a plum. He will have the dove above his head, and he will be able to speak and interpret every language known to mankind. And he will know the words that Jews are sworn to never write on paper or tell outside. Blend, do not mix. I am that man of the earth, the fulfillment of the Jewish secret.
Like, well, in that case, like, I'm tired and I need to pee. So, all right. So,
well played.
So this was fun. All right. Well,
where did you conjure that guy up from?
I have no idea. Like he's like.
I thought he was a bot. He's commented on our channel before, and I swear I thought he was a Russian bot.
I mean, apparently he's a Jewish bot.
A Jewish bot who believes in Jesus, which I've heard of Jews for Jesus before. Maybe I didn't ask him if he was one of those. Damn it.
He very much. Right. I could tell you right now. I know the executive director of Jews for Jesus personally. I can very much tell you that they don't abide that kind of nonsense.
All right.
No.
Well, then I guess I have that in common with them.
Yeah.
All right.
His name is Bob. He runs has a podcast called Bob's Your Uncle.
I think
that's awesome.
I think there's a lot going on with
Wesley.
Well, I mean, when he was saying he heard a voice and it very much wasn't God, what I really wanted to say was, did it tell you to apply the lotion to the skin or it gets dirty again?
There is a thing called sleep paralysis where people they can't move and then they're kind of like in a waking dream state.
Yeah.
So, and it's usually kind of a nightmare situation when it happens for people.
Yeah, I've experienced it, right?
Yeah.
And when I was in my more devout, like go to church every time the doors are open kind of era, like I would have.
That's terrifying. Yeah.
I would have been it's terrifying. It absolutely is. You can't move. You can't. It's like you said, you're in this waking dream state, so you're not really awake, but it seems like you're awake.
Yeah, you're like hallucinating. It's like augmented reality nightmares.
Yeah. It's like some of those gummies you were advertising earlier. But no, it is terrifying. And if you are, a person who has been, sort of indoctrinated into, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation, but just the way we're all indoctrinated to something, right? Mm-hmm. To believe that, the devil is real and demons are real. And there's a demon hiding behind every mailbox who's like going to tempt you to, do bad things or like whatever. Then it's very, the confirmation bias just takes over and you go, see the devil. And
right.
And it's very easy to think that. And so even in an age when we have access to every piece of information one could conceivably want to have access to, right? That in a time when that wasn't the case, right? Much easier to have some sort of a sleep paralysis episode. Nobody's discovered what the fuck that is, right? And think that, your neighbor down the road is a witch and she's casting spells on you because,
right.
She wants your land or whatever, right?
Yeah. Probably burn her at the stake just to
exactly.
be sure.
So he's a witch.
Can't be too careful.
But what also floats? A duck, small rocks.
She turned me into a newt.
I got better.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, Matt, before you left, was there anything else you wanted to say or interject or emote or
that
conjure?
I just gotta say, I kind of would like to see the Always Sunny in Philadelphia cast doing like a stage play of Wesley Clark's story.
That would be entertaining.
I'd watch it.
I feel like there was a never-ending wellspring of interesting thoughts.
Right. There was someone did this with AI a while back, maybe like not even a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. It was recent. Yeah. And it was every one of the Avengers, but it, done in AI, but played by all of them were played by Danny DeVito.
Yes.
and it was glorious, right? So
maybe I don't consider myself a religious man, but if that's your religion, sign me up.
Right? But no, I mean, like maybe this Wesley guy's story, but all of the various characters are played and or voiced by Danny DeVito.
Yeah. I got the impression that he's a lot of the characters in his story.
Right. I mean, well, you actually do, like, because I Tommy knows this, but Matt, for your edification, I have 2 degrees in theology. I spent a lot of time traveling around, learning how to preach, studying this kind of stuff, learning various languages. You actually see that exact thing a lot, where someone gets into whatever church or whatever religious context, and because
I was going to say, so you studied to become part of the problem. That's cool.
Exactly. but then it's like the drug dealer who then reforms and then like becomes a pharmacist. Kidding.
Yeah.
But it's you actually see this kind of problem a lot, and what happens is you teach people that God's going to speak to you, right? But then you don't necessarily, but there aren't necessarily parameters in place,
right? Because how can you put parameters on that?
It's like if God talks to you, maybe also see a doctor.
Well, yeah, right. It's right. No, 100%, right. And so, but because all of these texts that are allegedly, the orbiting texts for this entire movement were written at a time before psychology or even medicine of any type, right? There's nothing in there to really suggest that, like, if you hear voices telling you to cut people up and put them in the freezer, then maybe you should see a doctor, right? Or like whatever. Yeah. And then so there are no qualifiers on it, generally speaking. And what classifies or qualifies as God speaking to you, and what's just your own intrusive thoughts, right? I mean, generally speaking, the thought that Tony kicked the old lady down the stairs, probably an intrusive thought you should not dwell on, right? But
right.
But so there's no guardrails put in place, and a lot of times people like that just fall through the cracks, right? And because they can be challenging to deal with. And a lot of churches, they don't want to deal with the difficult people, and so they just sort of ignore them. Right. And then so they develop this own, to borrow a nerdism, right? Their own headcanon about what based on the text that they've read, with no education and no guidance and no mentorship in terms of what a text does or doesn't mean, right? Or what we should or shouldn't be believing. They develop their own headcanon about various different things. And
like a personal mythology kind of thing.
No, that's exactly, you nailed right on the head, Matt. That's exactly what's going on. And then what ends up happening is that spirals, and usually there is some contingent of mental unwellness, let's say, where there maybe is a little bit of a mental health issue, and maybe someone has some PTSD or is given to a mania of one type or another. And it just it all kind of feeds into this hurricane of Delulu, right? And then
Hurricane Delulu. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've been in church services a million years ago now where people like that will walk in and start trying to prophesy because they'll see some story about how whatever prophet from whatever part of the Bible stands up in the middle of the synagogue and just starts prophesying, thus saith the Lord.
Yeah.
Right? And never mind the fact that nobody actually has ever spoken like that.
Right.
It's like they will get up in the middle of this church service and start preaching and prophesying as if they are Christ themselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That
like they say, thus saith the Lord. I don't remember the Lord say a thing like that before.
Right.
But if you say
well, what really jacks them up and just kind of makes their head spin around is when you start saying things like, and you'll hear this in academic settings, right? Where you will say the words they put on Jesus's lips, right?
Yes.
Because the reality is that these are not, whether they're eyewitness accounts or not is hard to say, but they're not immediate eyewitness accounts.
Right.
So they're written down, depending on who you ask, anywhere between 10 and 100 years later, right? Depending on.
We'll be getting to that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So
right.
Yeah.
But so that makes their head spin, and then people like that where they just don't, they just don't have the ability to hear it. Right. Yeah. And I think that is the problem with the conversation about good and evil, right? Is you like that silky smooth TV segue, I can see. That it is that
professional.
Is that because we're dealing with thoroughly ancient texts that were written down at the absolute earliest 1800 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
But some of the Old Testament texts, you're talking about, 3,500, 4,000 years ago. And a significant amount of these texts were bandied about as oral, storytelling for, some period of time, that we shouldn't treat them as not reliable necessarily, but we shouldn't just assume and expect that they're 100% reliable.
Right.
And are history in any meaningful way, or that they should be taken literally. Right.
I mean, because you also can't assume that they even meant for it to be taken literally. There's
almost no question that they didn't. Right. I mean, if you actually study the way things are written back in the day, and not just in the context of the Bible, but in the context of ancient mythology and ancient storytelling and the way things happened and whatever, there's almost no reasonable or rational scholarly minded person will say something like that, because we all know that, especially, hell, in storytelling right now, we've all heard somebody who has a fish story, right? Who it's like, the big one that, the 100-pound, marlin that got away or like whatever. And it's just, you're prone to exaggeration. It's just what we do as humans, right? And so
it's a thing we do. Yeah.
100%. Right. So.
Yeah. Right. Well, Matt, was there anything you wanted to say or touch on before you had to head off, or?
No, I'll just do. So you guys are going to continue talking for a minute, or?
Yeah, well, I might actually have to go myself too, because I guess I have to work tomorrow. But but Vincent, thanks for hopping on, dude. This was cool. Enjoyed hearing your perspective on things, and
it was cool. I was just doom scroll. I was just watching TV, doom scrolling, and I saw it. I was just scrolling, and I saw you guys were live. I was like, let me see what they're talking about, right? And it's entertaining to see the other side because of my background. I'm still connected to a lot of people who are still very much in the church world, and you'll see the stuff they post or their little podcast or whatever.
Yeah. And us too. Yeah. That's,
it does get very siloed, right? There are, I've definitely been a part of some shows or seen some things where it's like, oh, this is why they don't like you. Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But, in the sense that atheists, I think anyone who doesn't hold themselves up as being Christian, right, gets sort of pigeonholed as atheist, right? And but there are definitely some well-worn tropes as it relates to people who identify as atheist, right? and so it was cool to kind of see sort of have the conversation from the other side, right?
Yeah.
Because I think when I talked to Derek, right? Derek is amazing and brilliant and a good dude, but it's also very like one speed, right? You know, like he's super intelligent and really knows his stuff, but because he was a bishop and he was writing books and on the platform and speaking at conferences and stuff, that's sort of his lane, right? And you can just kind of get used to how Derek likes to do things, right? And Aaron too, like same thing, right? You know, and so it's nice change of paces, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I guess. Well, and speaking of Aaron, to pay off on the tease I had earlier in the show, Aaron is actually going to be our guest next week.
Oh, that's cool.
So Aaron Tomlinson, for people who aren't familiar with him, you can check him out. He does a show every Friday with Derek Day, who Vincent was talking about, called Freeology Friday. It's a great show. Those two have like great conversations. I love that show just because they agree on a lot of stuff, but there definitely are some things on like where they're not on the same page on, but they disagree well, like when they do disagree, which I think is a fantastic thing. So
I mean, it helps that they genuinely like each other.
Yes, right? that also does help too.
That does help, I've found. No, I mean, like I've known Derek for a number of years. I don't know Aaron nearly as well, but I watch the show whenever I get a chance. It's a great program,
right?
But Derek, comes at it from Derek was, a Navy special operator and like a lot of different things. And then he was a pastor, right? But he kind of was the type of dude that came up like under someone else's tutelage and up through the ranks. Whereas like Aaron went to seminary. Right? It has, as a seminarian and, as a therapist, as a, degree in psychology, whatever. So he kind of comes at it from a more clinical kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I love Aaron's perspective, and I wish I could tease what we're going to actually talk about, but we haven't actually decided yet. I kind of feel like it almost feels like we're just going to kind of give Aaron like his chance to kind of give his background, and we may end up just like going from there, or we may decide on a topic. I don't know, but tune in next week. We'll have Aaron Tomlinson on. Awesome dude. Like he actually had me on his show because he also does his own thing on Sundays.
He does like a Sunday morning thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he actually had me on, this was like a while ago, like back in like this, like last December or something. It was really cool to talk with him. So I'm looking forward to talking with him some more about some stuff. So
he's a really sharp guy. He's really smart. He really knows his, he knows his shit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So come back next week. Anyone who like, if that sounds interesting to you, or even if it doesn't sound interesting, come back anyway, damn it. But
just come back. So help them run these numbers up. Just come back.
Yeah, for real. So thank you again, Vincent, for joining in, and thank you. Forgot what was the dude's name? Wesley. Well, thanks for at least for purposes of the algorithm. Thanks for interacting, I guess. But,
I mean, is it wrong that the whole time I was just hearing Jean-Luc Picard go, "Shut up, Wesley"?
Oh, you should have said that. That would have been so awesome. But anyway, we'll pretend you did. I saw it in your eyes.
Yeah. At first, I was just like, I'm going to be respectful because we all have our opinions and our experiences. But then when it became clear that he was a complete nutter, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we knew that. Like I said, he'd like commented on our show before a couple of times. We kind of, like I said, Matt literally thought this dude was a bot, but no. Yeah. So I guess it was nice to find out it was a real dude. So cool. Right. Thanks for showing up. But yeah. And also, but thanks, Vincent, for showing up and also not being a bot, but also not being completely insane. Yeah. We always appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, emphasis on completely, but
right. You got to have a little bit. I mean, for anyone who's like, the show, that's you got to have a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So I feel like not only this is so weird for me because like it's like not only can I already announce what we're going to be talking about next week because we usually don't even know till sometimes the day of. So Aaron Tomlinson next week, and then the week after we're finally doing our episode on Jesus, the man himself. I've been looking forward to this for a while and what we think of him, like what our views are. So that
should be entertaining.
I hope so. Well, I'm glad you already think so. So
I mean, but that's mostly because I'm reasonably well informed about the various schools of thought that are out there about who Jesus was and the whole resurrection or whatever. Interesting one. Not sure if you were aware of this, but there is a train of thought that where that teaches that the reason that no one could find the body was because it was carried away by wild animals and was eaten. There is a school of theology that believes that.
Which I mean, historically, as far as like crucifixion victims go, I mean that's not very far fetched. But
no.
Yeah, but I guess just as a way of a slight teaser, like my view is like I do believe he was a real person, but I believe like what we have on him was so heavily mythologized that it almost might as well be a completely mythological character. But that's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, I'll give a little additional tease for it. I think, in that vein, it's very similar to what most scholars think happened with King Arthur, right? Like most scholars think that he probably was a real dude that existed in the 4th or 5th century that did some great things, but then over the course of the centuries, it's become this thing where it's got out of hand, right? And I think that there's some validity to that to that line of reasoning.
All right, well, good. Glad to know that in advance. So, all right, cool. All right, well, Matt. Yeah, you want to take us out here, dude? And,
So, may your things and stuff be forever with your people.
Forever and ever, amen. All right, we come back next week again on Wednesday, our new time with Aaron Tomlinson. Thanks again to Vincent and I guess the other dude. I keep forgetting his name, but that's
shut up, Wesley.
But you don't need to keep reminding me. I don't give a fuck. Anyway, all right. Good night, everybody.